just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, where we seem to be here, and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
It's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one. Or
Cosmic resonance, that's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
When you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
All right, we are live. Quite the epic panel tonight. We are blessed with the amazing, legendary John Hutchinson and his lovely and intelligent wife, Nancy Hutchinson. And they're here to share with us the crystal battery design and what is an essential step towards everybody's self-efficiency of free energy and these power cells. And if you're an electrical engineer, you understand that the battery storage capacitance is a key part to attaining free energy. And with us tonight on the panel, we have Charlie C., Mike from Faraday Research, Andreas Zerdes, Space Case Ace O. Adam, all regulars from the Year of the Coil series that we've been doing. And there might be a few others that join in. But now that we know who's here, I will let everyone take over. Say hello.
Okay, hi y'all.
How's it going? I was excited because just before the show, I was listening to Nancy explain, a lot of things in ways that, you don't hear people talk about mass in terms of the electrostatic fields and, spin state. I think that's something that people should think about in terms of resonance and consciousness. So that's something I'm so interested to hear Nancy go on. I just want to hear more of that.
Okay. Okay, so let's start with this 2,500-year-old document.
Yeah.
And it's from the Master Essenes. Now, the Jesus dude, you guys know it wasn't Jesus, but I call him the Jesus dude. And I used to be in the Christian church, and I used to teach in the Christian church. I mean, I don't have it there now, but I could quote you, chapter, verse, all that kind of stuff. So I got interested in the possibilities that the science and the religions were not at odds with each other. And I found a website called reluctant-messenger.com. And that was decades ago. And that person and I have conversed and emailed back over the years. But in that, it gave me the ability to look at this document from 2,500 years ago. And if I was trying to just break it out by definitions, then I could find a definition for, a word that they use that it actually is a word that we use in science. And in that the beginning of that statement from 2,500 years ago was, from the age of ages is the eternal thought, and the thought is the word, and the word is the act, and these three are one in God, and proceeds from God and is with God, and nothing is created absent the law. Okay? Now, the law is the relationship of one thing to another. And I know that I through my own self-study and stuff, won in the Supreme Court of Minnesota without an attorney. And it's all, my mentor taught me the foundations of natural law and then how that applies to the physical law and it applies to the law of nations and blah, 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 blah. But see that all of that is the same as the harmonics. And if you have a thought, if you have every single possibility, the 0 point, okay, that's a 0 point because there's nothing happening there. It's just possibility, right? So you have every possibility and it's in complete equilibrium with no possibility of any fucking shit, okay? So
we live in such a lawless society, so it's interesting because when you say law, I feel like you're saying like nature or like the law of the physics. What do you mean by law?
Law. The definition of law is the relationship of one thing to another. Period. Whether it is civil law, whether it is religious law, whether it is statute, whether it is constitutional law, the definition of it, whether it's physics, law of physics. The definition of law is the relationship of one thing to another. How far away are you from me? Are you smacking into me and taking my shit? This is all
interesting.
Okay? It's the relationship of one thing to another. And that is what harmonics is the relationship of one thing to another. So if you've got something in complete equilibrium, there's no motion, but motion, which is stuck in there in the potential, okay, it's an enigma. It has to move. So it moves out of the potential into it. It's the firstborn that died and was resurrected. It's the Xfinity symbol on a Mobius. It went out, it came back in, and it touched itself and said, I am. Okay?
Right. You had a thing that was interesting about that idea that the emergence was maybe like elemental.
Yes. From the unconscious came the conscious. The age of ages is the unconscious. And that is one of the dictums, that's one of the requirements of us being in these physical bodies, that we go unconscious for a third of the time. Okay, you look at that pattern. There's patterns to these systems, and that which is in a matter that the consciousness created through these harmonics cannot move that body around for more than 2/3 of time. So that's just a little
Your thought on you had this thought also on whom the Son of God was in sort of a chemical metaphor, right?
Sure, and you could call it hydrogen too.
Hydrogen.
Right, and that you were saying that it's the stillness that consciousness brings that 0 point energy out of, correct?
The unconscious is the 0 point where there is no motion. That's the unconscious. And the reason is it's not there. It's because it's no longer a potential. It's no longer static electricity. It isn't voltage anymore. It's amperage. So you see, motion is the amperage. That the consciousness is the amperage and the potential is the unconscious.
So from like my own studies into alchemy and the metaphysical sciences and which connect consciousness into the universal fields, the sound creation, and then you're figuring out the resonance with frequencies, which are these sound energies that are of all creation and conscious creation.
Okay, so let's talk like fucking 4-year-olds, okay? So it's not that difficult, all right? It is really, really simple.
What a mouth on this 4-year-old. Jeez.
Okay, resonance is motion. Frequencies is motion. Thought is a word, is the act. So if motion is a thought that's been decided, so every frequency, every resonance, every fucking quark spinning around inside that atom is the thought motion. It's the thought is the word, is the act. Okay? And as those different motions are selected, we create different things. We go from hydrogen to helium. When we are selecting different things. And at some point, we decided it was a fucking good idea to make this planet and to put these creatures on here and to have our consciousness experience what we've created. Oh, it's like some fucking vacation or something. I feel like, the Q in Star Trek, Yeah, we're going to make you mortal for a while, So that's what we do to ourselves. We go and make ourselves mortal for a while. So that what? So that we can put more fucking shit in the potential. Because there's all those possibilities that we didn't choose. And where do they go? They go back into the potential.
Right? The infinity of the fractal experience. We are all created in the image of God because we all are an individual experience of the original creation.
No, you are the original creation, and you're just experiencing BurnEye. You decided, hey, I think I want to go and be BurnEye, so let's get that shit going. And so so you were created, okay? But you are the consciousness that decided to experience BurnEye.
It's like you're starting a band, and your parents is like, yeah, okay, go let them do it for a while. We'll see how it goes.
And the law of one, essentially, as well, it connects into, and law of attraction and manifesting that conscious energy into the physical matter and reality of our lives.
So you got the noble gases that have like nothing to do with the law of attraction. They just want to be fucking left alone, right? So if you look at all these personalities of the elements of what we created, and you can spell it out into humanity, into all the different personalities and cultures.
Redcap Goblin says, "Marry me, I love her." Pretty sure Taken, and Hutchinson's kind of a pirate. I mean, like he might have an anti-gravity sword. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying be careful out there. You know what I'm saying? Shameful, though, wants to get all, but what's about hydrogen? Shameful's like, everything still has hydrogen. Ice and water are not different things. LOL. So what do you got to say to Shameful?
Hydrogen. I think that hydrogen positive is the Father and hydrogen negative is the Son, and the oxygen's the Holy Ghost. That's what I think. I just look at these different concepts and saying, hey, what's the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, life. Okay, we got to have life. We got this Holy Trinity called water. So why not? You can make it into anything you fucking want to if you're 4 years old. You can look, right. You can, and if you're 4 years old, you're closer to knowing who you actually are than when you get into all the programming. And that's what's so wonderful about my husband is that he never went to school. He'd go to school, he'd go in the front door, he'd walk out the back and into the woods. They gave him a tutor who came in at 10 years old, and 10 years old, the guy said his bedroom was set up better than the chem lab at the university. So, and he also doesn't write very well either, or dress things,
We do like make a great deal about physical transformation as opposed to like a chemical transformation, right? So the idea that the physical changes of ice and water versus sugar to caramel or something like that. Like there's a transitory change that happens, but it's something that can be mitigated. It can be reversed. What do you got? You're jumping up and down. Tell me more.
No, I'm carbon, and you get me moving, and I change my form. I go from a crystal.
Right. Well, everyone knows that carbon's a bit of a harlot, right? Carbon just is little too friendly as far as atomic.
Yeah, well, sure, but you can't. The only thing that can move a noble gas is electricity, which is thought in motion. So thought in motion is the only thing that can move a noble gas. So, think about that. Think about the different dynamics of the politics and shit that we live under. Look at the meerkats and all their little societies and the shit that they do. We got these repeating systems. We have repeating systems of perceived powers and currencies and all this kind of stuff. And I just think it's time we change that, because we've done it so many times. I feel like, hey, I've done this a lot before. Can we just do something different this
Well, what's
time?
what's the different thing? What's the thing that we should do?
Well, I think first understanding who we actually are, and that we can change everything quantumly in the blink of an eye, which would be kind of cool. But there's also those that are still experiencing their, quasi power structures and stuff out there that think that they're doing the right thing, because nobody does anything because they think it's a bad idea. And so what the hell am I looking at?
So right here I've got loaded one of the power cells powering a light bulb of the crystal battery. Sorry. That is what is going to change it all, and that's the other topic of tonight's stream. You want to do is the crystal batteries.
Yes, and that has to do with this electromotive potential. So when you have when you have a metal, it's actually a mineral in your body, but let's say it's a metal, and you have a metal that is on the negative potential, and you've got one that's on the positive, right? So we identified a chart, and the lithium is all the way negative and gold is all the way positive. But when you start bringing those materials together, I was trying to find materials that were easy and cheap. So like I can use copper as a positive. Silver is better, but I use copper as a positive, and I use aluminum. Okay, but I have used gold, and I have used gold, and what did I use that with? What, somebody on the low end. Anyway, I mean, and it got like 2 volts, bang, just off a little pin. So it's the differentiation between those two potentials that a slightly alkaline fluid or a more alkaline crystal, and potentially better to have a piezo like a Rochelle salts, okay, that will pick it up. So that's a constant. That's a constant in the universe, that differential between there. And the amount of amperage that you get is determined by your surface areas. So we've done a lot of scuffing up, cells and things like that, and rifling things in the side of the barrels. But so, and then it's this little balancing act on how much you take out as to how much is actually there. And what we've done is gotten a capacitor, and we had special capacitors. Shoot, I can't remember. It was a year ago we were working on that. And a special diode. So because you're gonna that wire's gonna have pressure on it, right? And you want to load the capacitor with that pressure, but you want to get the capacitor, really full, right? And so the diode helps with that, so it doesn't spill back onto the cell. I've had that happen where I've had a capacitor spill back in the cell.
God, that sucks. I mean, so how big are these capacitors? Are they super capacitors or just kind of regular, or what were they for?
He had one about the size of this.
Yeah, that's what I was imagining.
I mean, it took a while, and we had a little cell about the size of my finger that filled it.
There should be like a techno band called Killer Capacitors,
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And when John went to discharge it, he used a fork and it ended up welding it onto the capacitor.
10 years ago?
Yeah, that was over in Minnesota. So, I mean,
that's cool. We're in Minnesota. I'm in Minnesota right now.
We're in just north of St. Cloud. Where were you?
I'm by St. Paul, kind of. I'm a little north of St. Paul, kind of Cambridge area.
Okay, so Rice. So basically head west from Cambridge and you hit Rice.
That's crazy. Interesting.
When we were, I don't know how long you've been there, but when we came up from the BP oil disaster, and we literally went through 160 tornadoes, and
yeah, it's crazy.
And so we get up north and we get set up, and all that summer that we were there, because we were working on the Fukushima problem and deciding, where we were going to actually bring our equipment. We bounced off the Great Lakes, using the speaker, and there's a town right on the border there between the United States and Canada, and the Canadian town was accusing the U.S. of noise pollution.
I'll bet they were.
Yeah, we were kind of bouncing shit around up there.
See, people never, they're always saying, okay, America and Mexico. And then they're joking about it, how Canada, were their Mexico. But, you just proved it. You're coming down here and... No, I'm just kidding. But I love St. Cloud, too, because it's, a very magical place built on caves and all sorts of crazy mystical stuff and the Viking runes and everything.
Right. Well, there was a time when we got back, that whole summer, when from being in Minnesota, the tornadoes and the weather trucks on across the Dakotas.
Right.
And then it comes down towards St. Cloud, and we had our bubble up there.
Oh man.
We were doing, and so it would come to Little Falls. Where Little Falls is, just north of us is Little Falls. It just come railing down, and in fact we had just gotten set up, so we weren't as strong as we were later. And there on Highway 10 there, it was like a mile from our place. on one side of Highway 10 was totally devastated, and there's nothing on our side.
Wow. So
and-
some Reichian storm shattering going on.
Right. So we got that pushed out a little ways up a little ways, but the meteorologists in the Twin Cities commented on it towards in August and stuff, saying, well, here it is again. We'll call that the St. Cloud effect. Here comes the storm, folks, and just watch as it gets to St. Cloud and it turns to light rain. You know, just,
Bernie, it's always best to give as much context as possible when you show that jar.
So, yeah, right. So, anyway, I don't know where we got off on that. But anyway.
Well, it's amazing, though, because the idea of the kind of equipment that you guys have been working with, and you were talking about examples of when you were using the capacitors, and it's interesting because I think people are always saying, hey, this isn't the way it went in my school textbook funded by McGraw-Hill and Rockefeller. It's not supposed to work that way. And, it's almost like you're like, yeah, I'm sorry, but, I did this thing, it happened. So it's all these examples of really important life-changing technologies. For instance, this is something that can either drive a storm directly into a town for the military or get it out of the way and protect a community. So,
well, that's what Dutch Sims, when we were...
Yeah, Dutch Sense. I'm glad you brought that up. I was literally just thinking that, and how he showed that the certain radars cause the tornadoes, and that you and Dutch Sense have been in contact, and I've actually been talking with him, and he wants to come on and do a show together this week with me as well. So maybe we can all do an episode together with Dutch. It would be pretty good.
I gotta get you guys in touch also with Majid and Majid Abdulazin, Majid Abdulazin, who does desertgreening.com, and he's like a German former Volkswagen engineer who makes Wilhelm Reich weather changing storm machines for greening the desert, and like the Arab Emirates and all these different countries are paying him to go to the Sahara and build literal Reich cannons, so.
Well, that I'm just trying to find some folks to understand the simple aspect of what these power cells are. And if we can get to a point where, let's make a box however big, if the box has to be the size of the fucking table, it doesn't matter. Have a box with an outlet on it, and we figure out how to make the cells and get them in there, whether the size of my finger or I have made them the size of a pin, okay? It doesn't matter, just so that the average Joe can do it.
But
And
what are they? You're saying that these are crystals, capacitors?
So let me explain a little bit more, Zertis, and to those that are new to this. The Hutchinsons have come out with and put out these how to do your own crystal battery cells for the last decade and a half, I think, at least now. And a lot of people I know have made them, like Charlie has, like the Laser Saber channel has, and I've got a couple of his videos up showing of the progressions of them. And the amazing part is, see here, I'll highlight Charlie's right now. I believe, Charlie, you've had this one running for a year and a half, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, almost 2 years.
Right, so almost 2 years putting out this constant usable charge, and that when you connect them in series in different ways, you're able to build an everlasting permanent battery that can actually run specific units, devices, and is essentially everlasting. And
what's in that
part that we'll get into, and that extremely fascinating stuff that the Hutchinsons have evolved with these cells is if you have them in certain geometries like spheres, or if you're pulsing them with certain energies, you can actually get the batteries to operate as AC, not just DC. Is that correct?
Yeah, the AC and DC. They give out both AC and DC.
Mm-hmm. And that's exciting news, because most batteries are just DC. To have an AC battery, you could do a lot with that.
Yeah, well, and...
Sorry, can you walk me through what's inside of the thing?
We have a video. I based my design off Laser Saber's interpretation of John Hutchinson's
Yeah, so this will be a good part. If you guys don't mind, I'll bring up the laser saber video of how to do, and we'll just play that for everybody to see. And this is how everybody can make these at home to start experimenting. And like, this is usable power.
It's not quite Home Shopping Network yet, but you can.
No, this is better than Home Shopping Network because you're learning how to engineer, build everlasting power cells.
I'm going to make the lady tasting ice cream face from the Home Shopping Network as soon as it's done, though.
Look at that. There it goes. And that runs fast, too. So 1.4 volts, and it's putting out, I'll put this on the 10 milliamps.
Bad.
Okay, greater than 10 milliamps. All right, it's putting out 90 milliamps. Okay, so I've had lots of requests from folks on how to build the crystal power cell. And if you followed along at laserhacker.com, I've had some crystal power cells on there powering a motor and an LED for the last 2 years on a live video feed. And I've just got comment after comment with folks asking, how do you build the crystal power cells? So this video is going to go over the building of this cell. It's very simple. It's a quick build, but I just thought I'd show the process I go through when I build a crystal power cell. And these crystal power cells, the first time I saw them on a YouTube video was years ago. John Hutchinson showed one running a small motor and kind of talked about them. IB Pointless 2, John Bedini, lid motor. A lot of us were experimenting with these a couple years ago. And then I just put some into long-term testing. I just put them on a shelf and said, let's see how these run over the next few years. And they've been doing quite well. I've been quite impressed with the duration of runtime I've gotten out of these. And I'm going to build up some more here. I'm actually going to build a larger system, but this video is going to document the building of a single cell. I'm going to build a 10-cell setup, and I'm going to get around 15 volts. And subscribe, follow along if you want to see that project. It will probably be the video after this one. So there seems to be about half a cup of alum in one of these containers. So I'm going to go ahead and use all of that. And I just want to break it up a little more in this coffee grinder so that it mixes better. It's really clumpy. But yeah, half cup of each of these ingredients. And that should be just right. Okay, so now a half cup of this no salt, sodium-free substitute. And this, if you look at the ingredients, this is potassium chloride. And that's one of the main ingredients in this. So we'll put the potassium chloride in here, half a cup. That's about right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we want to get half a cup of the borax in there. So as you can tell, these are very approximate measurements. I have not researched for a precise ratio because with a 2-year testing time and the previous cells still going, it would take a long time to really figure out the perfect ratio. But after 2 years of use, this ratio seems to be working pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and powder up the borax at this point. And that will leave the last ingredient, which is the Epsom salt. And we'll get that in here.
Yeah, do. It's love. Thank you.
So half a cup.
Yeah, bro. Powder up that
Epsom
borate.
salt.
Oh, the Epsom salt, yeah. That's right.
And you can see this stuff is really granular. So we're going to have to blend this up a little more to get a good mix.
I mean, this is a lot of the same stuff that's in my Crystal Rowan kit. Do not use your mom's
Okay,
coffee.
so that's our mix. I'm going to go ahead and put a cover over this and we'll shake this up. We really want to mix all these ingredients together thoroughly. So
the arsonist. It's alchemy. They're not supposed to be.
Okay,
Just,
so we got this stuff mixed up, and we're ready to actually build the crystal cell.
Anthony.
Okay, so we've got the burner on. I've got the magnesium core here ready, and we're just going to build a very simple crystal cell here. This will just be the magnesium core with a copper pipe cap.
Okay.
And the only difference I'm going to do is I'm going to put a spacer down here so that this magnesium core doesn't get...
To hear me.
Sorry, Nancy, did you want me to pause it? Did you have something that you guys wanted to say, or should I keep playing the video?
No, I wanted to say something, and this is the so basic stuff. Is that actually the thinner the amount of material, the better it works. I mean, I've gotten this thing down to a micron as far as the amount of material.
Right. I was thinking that. I'm glad that you bring that up. I was just going to look into, because I did nanotechnology with graphene, and I can imagine nanopolymers that would be perfect for this, especially in a supercapacitor.
It's the sodium silicate. When you coat the sodium silicate on your screw or your whatever is your inside piece and your inside piece, you're coating it with that, and then you're not going to short the thing out if you get really, really tight on it. And that's when I was talking about the last meeting we were at, that the compound that I came up with that has the viscosity to it can be then actually sprayed.
Jeremy, get in here. What?
So it can be, so that's, but that's like the second step on this. The first step is, well, you can have somebody sitting there and grinding all this shit and making this and making something that's this big, but we already
No, you want to grow it. See, so like, yeah, what we did in school. I mean, so there's a couple of things. Graphene, we did some laser ablation where you start with this fine graphite and then you burn it. But the best thing is when you seed it. When you seed it and you cause through electrolysis in like an ammonium sulfate solution, you have a positive negative charge, and you can let it start to grow. So if you seed it in certain places, it grows in certain patterns, and then you can use like chemical vapor deposition for sputtering or something. Sputter, right. Yeah, and allow it to grow.
But that's like the next, for my ego.
Yeah.
The first step is I already know how to make these the size of a pin and get 0.3 to 1 volt off of them. But in the pico with the amps. And
right.
So we can easily show people how to make 10 million of those, which nobody's going to do.
Yeah, so the next video in this series, Nancy, he actually connects them up in series to get a 12-volt crystal battery set up with it.
Right. I've gotten up to 12, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I imagine if you print it though, that would be the thing, because then you could sputter it and create a really long roll, a toilet paper roll of it.
Right. We talked about doing like 3D printing on this, but the first step is to get something that we get an outlet on, we can plug into, that we've got a really good set of plans, and people can make them themselves. Right? That's the first thing. And I think we're getting close. I mean, but some of these, like what you're showing in your video there, that's way too big. You don't need to be that big. You can get as much energy off of that thing if it was 1/10 the size.
Right. You have an equivalent charge for a smaller. Yeah, absolutely. And so what would be the rule? We'd have to think about like surface area, but is it,
right.
It's basically a surface area question, not a volume area question, right?
Right. And you can get a lot off of a sheet of copper, but one of the things about these cells is that they like to be in a cylinder, and like
shameful, not micro, nano. Sorry.
And so they like to be in the cylinder, and they also when I form them as a sphere, they're giving off the AC and DC without me doing any radio frequencies on them. And but I don't think we go to sphere with these guys. I think we keep them over in cylinders and get them something that we all say, okay, this is a doable, workable thing, and if it can run somebody's pump as a farmer, that'd be great. Something that they can actually have something that gives them the energy, that gives them some freedom.
Right.
So, and looking at the different materials.
I liked your thought there on sodium silicate based. I think that makes a lot of sense because the idea of growing the content is the best, and it wouldn't even require 3D printing because you could just use chemical vapor deposition and X-ray diffraction. And I think if you started with an aerogel and then just allowed it to seed, but you spray the aerogel, onto a rapidly moving cellulose sheet, the same as film printing, you would probably be able to make something that would have, we're talking all of a sudden not about microvolts. We're talking about like a megavolt, perhaps, or something.
When I put them on a circuit board, and with gold pins, I was getting a volt off of each pin, and this was just breadboards and things that my deceased brother I inherited from, and so I'm playing around with the power cells with his breadboards and with his little circuit boards and stuff. And it was kind of cool when he had the actual circuit put in there, and I could go from one cell to the other on his circuit board,
Bernie, can you pull up I put a screen share up. Can you show that for a second? So this is kind of an old paper at this point because it's from last year, but it's still pretty useful stuff, which is this idea of the synthesis of sodium silicate-based silica aerogels with graphene oxide by ambient pressure drying. So, I mean, by using, the volume shrinkage law and as we talk about laws, and pore volume, surface area, and compressive strength of the composite aerogel, then it would allow for like a sponge to place this. And so what you would have is essentially megawatt hours in a tape roll, right? And so that could be the way you would send the energy essentially once it's packaged in some sort of a labyrinth of
right.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into the third step, and we're just trying to stay
Sorry.
first step today, because Bernie and I have talked about third step.
Yeah, so I'll finish playing the rest of this laser saber video of how to bake the basic one, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it, and then I'm going to play his second one on how to make them into 12-volt battery cells, because that actually potentially, even like if it's a year, 2 year, it seems like it's even longer indefinitely, but 12-volt cells, like that's pretty good usage for like camping, like trailers.
You run an LED light. You could have a light,
right? Like you can light your whole LED lights, like patio lights, all sorts of stuff with that. Very, very useful.
So Bernie, this is Labor Saber. Is that who you said who it is?
Yes.
And is Labor Saber in on this discussion with us right now?
No, he's not. His channel actually is quite huge. Let me scroll down here. Yeah, so this video actually has 1.2 million views. He put it out 8 years ago. So we'd love to get on with Laser Saber at some point. Absolute genius as well. Join the community of the free energy revolution. Laser Saber.
Yeah, I would think that it would be good to connect with him and ask him in on this, and I would right away talk to him about reducing the amount of material that he's using. And part of the challenge with this is that it's all like a bunch of people doing it in their garage and just to run a fan or some dumb shit, and it's not taken seriously.
But that's all the Illuminati ever did with it for hundreds of years anyway. So I mean, to be fair, big fans. But
so, I don't know if this person wants to work with us on it. Like I said, the principle is real basic, and we can. What I talked about before is like we're on a typewriter, and bringing it to a typewriter with the electric typewriter with that little digital thing, you know, little line that would appear before you'd hit the return button. You know, that's like getting this to that box that's got the outlet in it. And there's so much more past this for us to do, but it's like, we need to get it into as many people's hands as with as much ease for them to produce something that is going to be usable for them and something that is tangible to them, such as, you know, running a heater or something for them in the winter. You know, something that is a necessity for them to have. Are you following me, guys?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I think-
absolutely. Here, I'll just play the last 4 minutes of this, though, so that everybody that's watching this can see how you actually can make the single circuit. It's very easy, and it's actually pretty similar to like orgonite and orgonite's making, correct?
It pushed up from the bottom and out the top, which has happened to mine. If you look at the live video feed on mine, over the years, this has actually been getting pushed up from the bottom. So after 2 years, it's about a quarter, maybe 3/8 of an inch higher out the top. And I want to stop that by putting a cap on the bottom. So yeah, we'll proceed. Okay, so I've got a small wood disc. I'm going to go ahead and glue that on the bottom of this. And it's really, gravity is going to hold it down, so I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the wood here and just basically glue that right to the center. All right, so we're ready to start adding the material around the cell. And I've got the hot plate set to warm. You really don't want to overheat this too quickly, or this material will just come bubbling up and out of the cell, and it'll be a real mess. So, okay, so I have this burner on the lowest setting. This is on just warm, and I can tell that the crystal cell material is really getting hot. It starts to get in a molten looking state, and that's what you want. So on the lowest setting, it's adequate heat for really getting this stuff melted down. Okay, I'm going to use this heat gun just to warm up the top section, because a lot of times the bottom section will get really hot, but the top section will not be as hot, and you'll get this stuff boiling at the bottom and still kind of crusty at the top, and that can also create a situation in which this material will bubble up out of the cell. So a little bit of heat up here. Okay, so it's starting to really bubble and boil in here, so I have this small piece of wire, and I can work around and just kind of work the material back down into there a little bit. But this is getting very close to being done here. I just want to make sure it has enough material to bring it all the way to the top. So I've had to alternate between the hot plate and the cooling stand here a little bit to get the temperature right, but this looks to be just about right. So what I really don't want is, I don't want a lot of large air bubbles, and yet I want the material to be in a liquid state and very loose and fluid around the magnesium core. And that's exactly how this is right now. So finally got this correct, and I'll bring down the camera close to this so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see here that there's a small bubble over here, but if I tap it, it just disappears. So we really want to keep it in this state as it cools down. Okay, so I really like where that's at. So rather than letting this bubble up and battle that changing in temperature, I'm going to try cooling this off at the bottom and just setting this in water at this point. I really think that's the secret to stop this from bubbling out of the top. We'll just try it. I've never done it this way, but I think setting this in here will allow this to just firm up just the way I want. So I'll leave that and we'll see. All right, so this is cooling off, and you can see a really nice top surface on here. And taking this from the hot plate right at that critical moment and setting it in the water to cool off stopped the heat from the bottom that was creating the bubbles that were coming through the top. So that seems to be working really well. Now you just want to leave this alone until this becomes rock hard. So don't get impatient. Don't go, oh, I'm going to test it now. If you were to jostle this, you would form a crack fracture between the two materials. So you want to let this set up hard like concrete before you do anything with it at this point. So we'll leave this in here. I'll come back in 20 minutes, half an hour, and take a look at it.
Crystal
Okay,
battery.
so the crystal cells all cooled off. The crystal material set up hard like concrete inside here, and that's just how we want it. I went ahead and sanded down the outside, so this is all cleaned up. It's ready to do a first test, and what I thought we had tested with is this small DC motor. So let me just connect up here. I want to connect to the outside of the copper case. So we'll make sure we get some good
bro,
contact
he's gonna
there.
play
And
music.
look at that. There it goes. And that runs fast too.
That music
So yeah,
causes
I'd say that's a really good crystal cell. Hey, it's got some torque. Listen to that, folks. You can hear that snapping against the side there. So that's
Man, that's so funny though. Like, welcome to the organic chemistry cooking show. Make sure you only use organic chemistry in the organic cooking chemistry show. That's pretty good.
Great. Okay, so a lot of the problems that are being shown in there, with that compound. I mean, that's
Bernie,
like,
can you go back actually to that and click on borate from the borax? Sorry. Well, you continue. Sorry, Nancy.
Jeremy joined us, alien scientist, and it's Jeremy.
Jeremy, what's up? I'm glad you're here. Click on the borate. So at the top it says hydrated borate. Borax is a hydrated borate. Top. There you go.
Oh yeah, borate.
Yeah, borate's a really fascinating chemical or element, right? Several boron oxyminion negative ions, right? So I mean,
okay.
Yeah, these are interesting groups because boron's an interesting. It has three bond angle valences, so it can form some interesting bonds.
Okay,
use it in Pyrex. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, so the formula, the basic formula before you put doping stuff in to try to get more power out of these cells has to do with Rochelle salts. Rochelle salts are 2 parts cream of tartar and 1 part baking soda.
Of course, it's cream of tartar. That's great.
Okay, and there's your potassium. And so that is a waste product from the wineries, and we're right in wine country here. We actually get the waste product, and we've been able to get more power out of those, about 50% higher power from the actual waste product and not the cream of tartar. So they cut it. They cut that with, I think it's calcium carbonate, I believe is what they put in there.
TechSpread, that's an interesting thing. I think the answer to your question, TechSpread just asked.
Actually, Nancy and John go deep into that a little bit further, and it's structuring them like the tree cells, the fractals, right?
Right. So now with so you can create that. I say piezo, somebody else says piezo, but you create that compound Rochelle salts when you it's just like what I was talking about when I was running the sugar, I get it hot, and it goes liquid. That's what happens with the baking soda and the cream of tartar. You warm it up and it goes liquid, and then it combines, and then with John's original power cell, it would recrystallize, and you'd have to catch it right at that point where it had turned to this gooey taffy. You'd pour it, and then you'd make the cell. We've advanced since then. So we've got 2 parts of cream of tartar, 1 part baking soda, 1/2 of Epsom salt. Okay, and that'll give you that run to your components and pour it really quick. But then if you add 1/2 cup of white sugar, the good old carbon whore of Babylon, what it does is it slows down that crystallization process, and it's actually the reverse. Saltwater taffy is white sugar and cream of and like 10 parts white sugar, 1 part cream of tartar, and you get saltwater taffy. So you get the sugar will not recrystallize.
No.
Okay, So the sugar and the cream of tartar, those two in combination, in that particular combination, because I tried a lot of them, will create.
What kind of sugar? Like fructose, sucrose? Does it matter? Does glucose work better?
No, it's plain white sugar.
Sugar cane, right?
So
Yeah.
sucrose, probably.
Yeah, sucrose, right? Plain white sugar, and so then when you're watching it, and I was explaining to the guys, and I'm it's all guys here, so
Don't worry, Nancy. There's plenty of females and girl energy in the live chat, though. It's balanced out.
Emily
You're holding
right
it
there.
down pretty solid for a room full of dudes.
All the ladies in the chat
Much
are all.
respect.
If you've done any candy making, okay, you want to get to what's called the hard ball stage. I'm sorry, the softball. You don't want the hard ball. You want the softball, and it'll go through this really sticky. You got to keep it under medium low heat as you're doing this, and when I have a stainless steel counter that I slap it on and see if it makes a little ball. Then you pick it up, and if it's sticky between your fingers like it is when you're fertile, women, if you know that, okay, it's not time yet. You got to let this go further so it doesn't.
So you're trying to make you're caramelizing the sugar to sucrose into a glassy substrate, or is that the plan?
Well, no, it's all of it. All of it is going through this process. So it's not just the sugar that it's the whore of Babylon, okay? And so the carbon is modifying the other crystals in it so that they don't recrystallize. And it's the relationship, the harmonics, if you will, between the carbon and the potassium that's in that cream of tartar. So anyway, as a 4-year-old, what you end up with is something now that you can form it into anything you want. You can push it into something and stick your screw or whatever on it, or what I mean. I have rolled it out into the tiniest little threads and stuff, and I wrapped it around and I made Mobius power cells with it. So it makes it much easier, and if you wanted to stay that way, so that that your actual power cell is always flexible.
A Mobius supercapacitor is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, well, the Mobius speaker thing that we produced that I made I've got a video on that. And anyway, so the power cells that were the Mobius, all along that Mobius had different power readings. So I think that's going to be part of our time and space thing that we're working on.
Julia says,
how did you keep them flexible?
The Mobius?
How did you keep it flexible?
How did I keep what flexible? The compound or the metals? I just use foil.
I was trying to follow along here, and it sounded like you were saying you kept it flexible, and I didn't know how you did that, or how the sodium silicate. How did you use that?
Keeping it in the putty form by adding the sugar, I think, right?
Yeah, by adding the sugar, you end up with a matrix that when you put it between a negative electropotential metal and a positive electropotential motive, that electromotive potential metal, okay? When you put that taffy, that putty between them, you can, if it's film, you can bend the film wherever, and the compound will bend with it.
But then but the material stays flexy.
So that sounds easy. How did sodium silicate relate to any of this?
It didn't. Sodium silicate is just what you put on the metals so that you don't short the thing out. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the sodium silicate.
Right. I was just saying earlier that you could use sodium silicate if you wanted to do this to because with the nanoscopic scale, the surface area to volume ratio is tremendously. The amount of surface you have is increased, and the amount of volume is decreased so tremendously that you could have in a foam, an aerogel of sodium silicate.
But this putty also. This putty, when it's at that really sticky and it has a lot of viscosity, it's still usable. You can spray it.
So
that's how you can make that very thin coating. But anyway, this is what I see with the laser.
2 points to Homoday Theodosia. Sodium silica acts as a dielectric insulator.
Right.
So I think that what essentially is going on here is that you're building a crystal, which is you're forming a crystal under voltage so that it's bias oriented across the crystal, so that any valence electron that's occupying that state within this lattice structure has a higher probability of migrating toward one side of this crystal than the other. And there's plenty of background radiation there if you're on the right frequencies and you're interacting, your substrate is interacting on the right frequencies to pick up that background.
Bernie, can you pull up my thing for a second?
Cosmic microwave background, the CMB radiation, and other radiations that are all around us, just in the air, available for low energy. Some of these are low energies, these frequencies, but there might be ways to tune into many of them simultaneously and harvest those energy flows for whatever is going on in these crystals. I think that it might have something to do with this, because this is the experimental side that we kind of venture out and look for in the physics community to see. We got to have the people that are just trying all kinds of crazy shit, and sometimes they discover some interesting stuff, and then it's up to the physics community to then reflect back on this and try to figure out just what the heck is going on.
Well, I disagree. I think it's up to the people to build these things.
We got to be the scientists. Yeah.
I really, that's we need feet on the ground people that are going to actually say, okay, what's the best way to manage this? We understand the physics of what's happening between two.
But do we understand the physics?
See, Jeremy, this is the big conundrum. See, and I think it's in all of our lives. Do we be the police? Do we be the lightning rod, or would we be the lightning bolt? Are we the thing that comes after and then explains it, or are we the people that are making the thing now before it's explained? Because scientists later on can write these papers, all these PhD papers that come after, usually after the person
we have to
comes up
take
with crazy
this
thing.
discovery, and then we have to put it to the test through various experiments so that we can get the right model.
Exactly.
Then we can program the AI to go and do material science searches to be like, oh, well, what's the best way?
I mean, the thing is, though, these conversations are where we get these great ideas. The idea, for instance, of talking about, bias-oriented crystals that are maybe radiomagnetically built.
Skeptics rarely discover anything new, and I hold to that statement. And my next question is going to be, how in the world is there an alternating current version of this? Because if that's what's going on, it means standard physics has no idea what's happening here. And I love that idea. Yeah. How do I make the AC version?
Oh, he's got an
Well,
AC. Put a coil at AC off of it, unless he converted it.
Can you say it louder? Didn't hear you.
AC version. So this is interesting, because there's a number of interesting materials that we've classified based on their electrical properties. If you want to share this graphic I have up, ferroelectrics are super interesting because they have this what's called a hysteresis curve, where the electric and magnetic fields actually oscillate, negative and positive. And so if you had something that was in tune with these things oscillating, then potentially it could produce, an AC, but then it'd have to be at the frequency of this, cosmic microwave background, which is, microwave frequency. Let's see.
Okay, so I'm not going to get into a debate of physics on this. I really wanted to talk about whether we're going to have a group of people to get the first part of this done.
Oh yeah, and it's that it's there, it's here, and like here's it in the 12-volt section of it, and it's that there's so many weird things when you start experimenting outside the box that you end up discovering and like have no idea like how to explain it at first. Like this right here, my monoatomics, the diatomics, the whole different reactions and whatnot, like that's a whole nother universe in a jar that it's like from the outside it's like it just makes no sense, but then when you start doing it, repeating it, changing the variables, having the controls, you start making gigantic leaps and bounds, connecting the different discoveries and new technologies.
Jeremy brought up a good point about like neural nets, though. Also, in the future, AI is going to be able to reduce the entropy from so many points that they're going to be able to make a system that actually works. I mean, we're finding these systems naturally from accidents a lot of the time. Not a lot of the time because it's an epiphany moment when these things happen. But, AI, I think, will accelerate that just by making so many of the points of interaction more convenient.
Okay, so
if it makes any difference, I'm a poor farmer and I would love to hear Nancy's the rest of her instructions. I'm taking notes. I know a lot of poor people I could spread this to.
Well, the first part of this was to find that an open source, not just the power cell, but the power cells, whatever they are, hooked up to an outlet, and you can plug something in. You can run your pump. You get a bunch of these, and you're a poor farmer, and you need your pump going. Whatever it is that you've got something that is you built, and it's your energy, and it's forever for you. That we give that to people if they want to do that. But like I have said over and over again, I know how to build a table, but it's easier for me to go down to Goodwill and get this table for $5 than even to buy the materials to put it together. And so the vast majority of people are going to prefer getting the box already made with the plug on the outside. And what I had talked with the guys about before was that, yeah, that would be step 2, and step 2 might be putting all this on circuit boards. Step 2 would be hitting them, building them here in Willits where we're at, and having the frequencies then infused. And we add the magnetite in that we did for the Johnny tubes, that we created these units that are all over in a grid on this planet trying to stop the radioactive shit. So that we do that with what we produce, but we don't sell them, we trade them. And you're a farmer, you're a poor farmer. Well, what crop do you have? What do you produce?
I tried to start a garden seed company before figuring out that I have no marketing skills, and I have a lot of eggs, which according to the state of California are completely illegal for me to sell unless I match so many requirements. I don't have enough money to do it. So my produce here pretty much is basically something I can't sell and something that's illegal to sell.
Well, but I could trade you.
I'm all up for trading. That does happen occasionally.
Good. Hold on, guys. Like Jeremy's got Dr. Garrett Model's work that he wants to show that it's
I was just looking that up.
The gap of like the physics that actually explains what you guys have discovered in the work.
Garrett Model's pretty interesting.
Trying to connect the two communities as we're trying to do the bridging it, not dividing. Is the main key, and that we're we know it works. We have several examples that we've already
Right.
seen.
I wasn't trying to start a debate over the physics, so much as we're just trying to explore the physics of this, and I want to point people to the models that are out there and some of the ideas that are accepted in physics, so that people can get access.
Yeah, make or break. That's the thing. It's like you got to take a model to break the rules and to understand all the parts. It's interesting.
My background is that I went to college for physics, and I remember asking the professors about what I built. They didn't tell me I interpreted the results wrong. They didn't tell me any of that. They told me I built the wrong machine. This should have never existed.
That's an engineer, not a scientist. And there's like 6 scientists in the world. You know what I mean? It's the way it is. And like any true Scotsman, there's no true scientist. I get it. I hear you. Still, I mean, Garrett Modell's based. I love Garrett Modell. I'm stoked you're bringing him up. I kind of wanted you to elaborate a bit more, because I don't think everyone's heard all of his stuff.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff that he's gotten, because he starts off with a theory of this where he shows like there's experimental verification that we're sitting in a thermal bath of energy, and it's called this quantum vacuum, or this 0 point energy radiation, and it's just sitting here in the background section, which is right from this photon energy down, which is right in that gigahertz range, and everything below that. So it's kind of just this low frequency, of course.
It's field. It's the idea of field, right?
Does anyone else remember the idea that the solar panel companies, like one of the world's largest, could easily produce a solar cell that would pull heat out of the background energy? They tried to produce it, and they were told it was a national security issue.
Yeah, nighttime.
So they're not allowed to make it.
There are people that make moon panels. They call them moon panels because they're picking up the ambient energy that can be picked up at night as well, right? So, but think this. Radiovoltaics exist. Just type radiovoltaic into Alibaba Express, and you'll find some.
Yeah, so it's this base electrode and upper electrode where this is insulation layer between. And you create these barriers where the topology creates these fluctuations where just your electrons generally migrate across the surface of these structures that form within these crystal cells. So that's the chemistry, or the physical chemistry of what you're trying to produce within these things. So that might help the material science search for a better materials that we can get to increase this effect and build more efficient devices than the ones.
Right. I mean, as soon as you get, we're talking about microsize, as soon as you nanosize these things, then all of a sudden it reduces so much of the entropy.
Well, it gets down to the molecule, actually. So, and that's what Bernie and I were talking about whenever.
Yeah. No, excellent. I definitely want to. Sorry, we just want to make sure, because this is stuff that most of the audience haven't heard before. Trying to get it all together. For most people, the cream of tartar is for the eggs pickled and powdered. The freshness isn't the yolk for you. See what I mean? You know what I mean?
Right, and it's it's going to take several steps and processes, and it's like this is the introductory of it, where we're bringing it all together. The next episode, it's like. There'll be probably 3 or 5 of us that will all have the materials together, and we'll be making our different ones. And like I'll experiment by putting some monoatomics in it. Like each person will be doing different variations of them, and it'll be a working group in progress that maybe once a month or every couple of weeks that we do the progress and come back and keep it developing and evolving and turning into being able to make them on the eventually nano size, potentially the bioelectric parts of it, on the.
A lot of this stuff is similar to the battery placer video John and Nancy put out that Charlie linked up. Interestingly, kind of some similar concepts here.
Well, yeah, we did that, 12, 14 years ago? I mean, that was Alec? No, the power cell video, the one we did when we were in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'll just bring that up and play that quickly, and then
Yeah, bring that up. Bring that up because that was key, man. That's what got me into this years ago. So yeah,
Right.
It's a long video, and we've seen it.
it's only like 4 or 5 minutes, I think.
Why don't we have
It's
John?
minutes.
Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, give us an
Let's do a bathroom break in this movie. The video will just play for everybody, and then we'll come back and be able to discuss it.
Or you can critique and update the video, however you prefer.
I'm trying to find my own videos under military battery replacer and cannot find them.
This one?
Upload so many ridiculous
This is John's video. What's this one, John?
Right.
Don't come up
The battery replacer video, John.
I'll do this one again by request of somebody. I was watching a video last night on paper. Has the energy flow if it gets moist.
Red Cab patents go out of date.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them that are held under these holding companies, and every one of our national labs has one of these holding companies specifically for these patents. So yeah, if you try to patent this stuff, you're gonna get scooped.
Things you like talking about.
Well, the thing is, we open source. We don't believe in the patents.
You have to. You're gonna get killed if you try to patent it. They're gonna end up like hundreds of other people with stories of. So you can't.
You gotta liberate it before you die. It's true.
Yep.
Bob Breniart calls patents inventor's disease.
B-side battery, apparently made by.
Around 1993, that was confirmed by the military in Ireland.
Because it was given to me in 1993.
Years ago.
It's pretty interesting, John, because this is very similar to what we're looking at here. And then essentially some of these nano, like we're talking about the nano processes, they're working with the same materials, NOHO and wire and iron core is the exact same.
All around that
video a year ago, I think.
Let's just call it iron rod bar wrapped around. Then a low inductance capacitor system.
Want some dessert?
Put around the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's actually the green.
I'll bring you some dessert and another drink.
Electrode is connected from.
This is very much the model I imagine, even for a nanoscopic scale. But like it's a fractal. You could build it so big when you have this design because you just coil the capacitor, and so it's just a sheet.
Junction barrier.
Yeah, basically, it's a coil.
I like the Mobius idea though, because then the thing is you could also charge it on the other side. You could have some sort of a reuptake. It might not be like full loss of lack of entropy, but then still you have some wind or something, chemical reaction.
Talk to military folks.
I know Darko had one of their solicitations for a miniature storage system.
I had never seen anybody else talk.
Here, maybe reduce video so we can hear what John was saying, Bernie.
I thought I would just redo this video and just stay focused on this.
Sorry, John, say that part again. Oh, just in terms of you were saying you were working on something like this, or you're continuing this process since then.
I submitted a proposal to DARPA.
Oh, so when into like the 2005 one, or which DARPA proposal? At which point?
Oh my goodness, about 1998, I think.
Nice, way back.
I still got
That's
that.
so funny. Because I remember in 2012, there was still a great DARPA grant that they were trying to get us to do to make supercapacitors for drones, essentially. I mean, they didn't say what for, but real geniuses, what they want them for. So it's interesting. The same idea of, that they're still trying to get us to make even more powerful batteries when that was around in 1998. That's crazy.
Yeah, looking for batteries you can put in spacecraft that they send way out into space that don't die out. So,
but we're using a lot of buzzwords here. You know what I mean? Because I hear like battery, I hear cell, like fuel cell. So, and I hear capacitor. So I'm like, what are we really talking about? Is it a battery? Is it a fuel cell? Is it a capacitor?
Well, I know 3 scientists that personally that have discovered 0-point energy. Ken Shoulders, Dr. Peter Kokoschnik, where I lived in Austria for 2 years, and then Dr. Franklin E. Mead, a friend of mine. If you look up on Google patents, December 31, 1996. Dr. Franklin E. Mead's 0.
Bernie, you on it?
Hmm?
Oh, I was asking if Bernie was on it, if he was looking it up.
I'm not. Do you want to do it? If I give you the screen. Okay, Jeremy had to dip out quick. Probably doing something with his kids there. He said he may come back in a little bit, depending if
Word,
he
Jeremy.
back to sleep. So do you want to share screen, Exertus?
No, it's okay. John, just tell him what it was to look up.
Oh, okay. Look up Dr. Franklin E. Mead, M-E-A-D-E. Free energy device for 0-point energy collector, 1996, December 31. It was a major breakthrough in physics, and he patented the device for collecting 0-point energy.
Here, I think I found it. If you want to share my screen.
Found it?
Yeah, I think so. Franklin B. Mead Jr. patent. System for converting electromagnetic radiation energy to electrical energy. Ooh.
Right, yeah.
Very nice. Interesting. So, a system is disclosed for converting high-frequency 0-point electromagnetic radiation energy to electrical energy. The system includes a pair of dielectric structures which are positioned proximal to each other and which receive incident 0-point electromagnetic radiation. The volumetric sizes of the structures are selected so that they can resonate at a frequency of the incident radiation. The volumetric sizes of the structures are also slightly different so that the secondary radiation emitted therefrom at resonance interfere with each other, producing a heat frequency. If I can get this a little bigger. Radiation, which is at much lower frequency than at the incident radiation, and which is amenable to conversion to electrical energy. An antenna receives the beat frequency radiation. The beat frequency radiation from the antenna is transmitted to a converter via a conductor or a waveguide and converted to electrical energy having a desired voltage and waveform. That's very similar to some of the stuff that I've seen Jeremiah do, except for a little bit of this amazing incident at the beginning here. Wow.
Food. We're eating.
Interesting to note that IBM bought up most of the patent rights to it.
Interesting.
2002.
Yeah, see, that's the fun thing with these companies. So you look at like IBM in photonics. Let's see, IBM photonics. If they started building the prefab or the fab solutions for building photonics a long time ago, but it's going to take like 20, 30 years. And part of the deal is they're going to continue to sell all the chips that are non-photonic first until the fab processes can be, they can afford to build $1 billion fab process that's for a company that won't exist right away and will immediately disrupt all. It's a disruptive technology, right?
What is that kind of burn?
I kicked out a scientist.
So yeah, you get your mouth full of food.
Charlie also, though. Oh, go ahead, Nancy, if you had something to say.
Yeah, Mead, I think I was emailing him for a while. And I was telling you he's got too much stuff in there. And that if you had less stuff, you get more energy. Because you get too much material in these cells and they don't work as well. You get thinner and thinner material and they actually work better.
Right.
So, I don't know, guys. I mean, if you want to mess around with the putty for a while and see how that works, like I said, what we need to get out there is that electric typewriter with that little digital display, which is going to change that changed things. I mean, being able to see what was going to go on that piece of paper without hitting the key and you made the mistake. So I mean, it was a big change in consciousness when that happened. But then immediately after that, you know, a year or two after that, out comes the personal computer. And so I think, you know, we need something that gives them that the human system a change, like being able to see what's going to go on that piece of paper before you hit the return key. That was a big change. It really was. I had one of those. And having this box that you can plug in and run stuff with, and you can actually do it and make it yourself. You know, we tell them where to buy it all. It's something simple. I think the more simple we can make this, the better, so that lots of people do that. And then we can have our new currency, which would be the stuff that we make, and we trade it. We trade the farmer for some eggs he can't get rid of, you know, and yeah, we'll give them to the pig farmer or something, you know, whatever. And, you know, we just have a new currency.
Is that a natural law, you think, of scarcity or of trade, like exchange? There's a law of equivalence, you know, nothing can be created or destroyed, only exchanged. Or is there like such an abundance that we'll hit a point where we don't have to worry about that anymore?
I am. I am. I can do whatever I want to do. I can be whatever I want to be. I chose to be in this body. I chose to have this experience with this fucked up political shit and nuclear shit flying all through the atmosphere. The very thing that I created being destroyed by me, by the consciousness of me within these humans. And so I decide I want to change it. If you want to change it, come along with. But we have to change it. I personally get tired of the same old story. And that begs the whole fractal issue of the human consciousness, is that we are repeating and repeating and repeating until we choose not to repeat. And I believe that bringing forward this power cell and the abilities that it will give individuals to free themselves from this concept of currency. Okay, and currency is only currency is a representation of human energy.
Flow. Okay. Current.
That's what
Think artificial scarcity. Artificial.
Bang on. Of key economic points is that currency is a store of human energy and work. That's
artificial
exactly
currency.
it.
Artificial scarcity is a lack of flow.
Yes, and if you've read Immanuel Velikovsky, the consciousness here has changed things many times, and has we decided we didn't like the dinosaurs and we fucking got rid of them. You know, we decided we wanted to, you know, whatever culture that
Don't say that. I love dinosaurs. Dragons are great.
No,
The dinosaurs.
I am
Dinosaurs. Dragons are cool.
I am reasonably confident my chickens are tiny dinosaurs. We didn't get rid of them. We made them serve us.
Yeah, they're just economy size now. It's like the fiat equivalent to the dinosaur.
Yes, I totally agree. Okay, because we got the ravens that come in here.
Look what we did to the wolf, you know?
Yeah, we made it domesticated, so now to lick our butts. So anyway, so that the thing is that we are, and I believe that we also have a lot of autistic people happening, including John, including myself, I think at times, because I just don't fucking fit in this shit.
I really wish that Jeremy was here for this part because he's from Boston. So sometimes people will be like, I'm a little bit of an artist. And I'll be like, do you mean you're an artist or an artist?
He's still in the live chat. And so my perspective of this and working with so many geniuses as well as talented artists, musicians, painters, all of it, and that they usually have what is quote unquote some sort of mental illness. It's not in fact an illness at all. It's a greater consciousness, where they call it dementia, because your consciousness is essentially existing in 2 dimensions simultaneously, where you're able to access other information and bring it in and manifest it into this 3-dimensional dimension.
Yeah,
Well,
they have good imaginations. There you go. Let's just break it down. They can imagine, all right? A lot of people can't imagine anymore. A lot of people can't imagine that they're actually the creator and living out this experience. If you can imagine that, then you can take that out of the potential as well. Hey, maybe I'm fucking wrong, but I'm making it happen, So I'm going to remember myself to the consciousness, because evidently the deal is that when you become in a human consciousness, you have to forget all the shit as far as you are the consciousness. That's part of the deal. And I think what happens by doing that is that we keep repeating, we keep having these fractal systems of humans doing these different things, and then everything blows up, and then we got to blow up the planet, and then we got to bring a flood and get Noah in the ark and all that kind of shit. We do this over and over and over again, creating this genetic terror of being on this fucking planet, because you don't know what's going to happen, if you're going to get your ass bit by a wolf, or if you're going to die of exposure because you don't have the right body to be out.
That's why we domesticate it, because it's better to be bit by a chihuahua, and just barely. I mean, so also a rebuttal question that I have to wonder about. So not really, but just like a thought. So pressures move fluids, voltages move charges, net forces move objects, and money moves people. But what do you think about that? Pressures in general, pressures. What do you think about pressures?
Well, I don't know about the last statement, but
you don't think money moves people? Sometimes.
No.
It doesn't move. The Amish does it.
The Amish sell. So the Amish are the most ruthless capitalists. They don't. Are you kidding me? They're I don't know. They sell so many.
Okay.
Do you see the stuff the Amish sell? They sell fireplaces, like in magazines on the internet. Who are they? Who's the Amish pimp who is in Indiana right now selling? I'm sorry, it's a tangent.
Oh no, I guess you just made me realize that I'm like Amish without the money motivation or the religion, and it's not working out very well.
Cool to romanticize the Amish. It's cool to romanticize the gypsies too. I mean,
well,
hey, it's really cool. It really is that I'm the consciousness, and I'm getting to have all these experiences, from the bush in Africa to the techie guys that are sitting here arguing about it. It's just amazing that I get all these experiences, and then I go unconscious, and all those experiences go back in the potential. Okay, so the things that I decided not to do are now potentials to be done the next day. Or not, but it's in the potential.
Right. Okay, so not necessarily money, but still pressures. What do you think about pressures, in general? Like the idea that pressures are moving fluids.
We all need to reach our potential together and take charge of building this new reality of abundance and free energy. We just have to materialize it ourselves, and that's what we're doing right now. That's the law of attraction that's bringing us all together in this moment right now, that's going to keep bringing this forward and start making it for ourselves. My goal here is by the end of the month, to have my own little working models where I'll at least be powering some lights, and that it's hey, that's a little bit just off the energy grid. That's producible, usable of light for now, forever, that I have, that is no longer relying on the grid, no longer costing money, and that is green energy and completely feasible and usable.
Right. There's also a comment earlier from Shameful that was about Emmanuel was friends with Einstein, and if you base everyone who crossed paths with him delved into MK Ultra style cognitive. So basically, the point being, do you think that because MK Ultra style, or do you think because evil people, military over in Germany in the 30s stuff, people have looked into this stuff, right? So because evil people have tried to tap into this stuff, does that inherently taint free energy, or anything like that? Does that taint the research?
I don't believe there's any evil people.
So
Everybody does it because they think it's a good idea. Okay? Hitler thought it was a good idea. So did all those folks in Germany. My maiden name is Kaiser. You don't think I understand these motherfuckers? They thought it was a good idea. They didn't do it because they thought it was evil. You guys are evil. But, that's the whole thing that is the setup in this system. You got to look at that. You can't have consciousness unless you have the knowledge of good and evil.
And you don't want to focus on evil. You just focus on your own positive intent and not manifesting evil around. Or just like, if you expect evil to exist, then by natural law, there will be this equal opposite reaction that creates some sort of evil that you're going to find when you start putting your energy into it.
What about Manuel?
I've got an
Manuel and Philo Farnsworth.
alternate idea as far as good and evil. Like, I personally know the
Haha, they did this again. It's a running gag every time.
Runs the banking system for.
Every time Adam tries to tell us some like infinitely wise truth, he gets broken. If it's working, give it a shot.
If you guys don't mind, Charlie really wants to bring up, I believe this is a video, John, from one of your earlier YouTube channels, or a smaller one. I'm not sure if you still have control of it or not, but it's one of your more advanced cells that you have lighting up a full light bulb.
Okay.
I wonder if that's a wafer.
I think it says 2016 free energy. See, and it's like, for those that don't know, John and Nancy, they've been putting out these free energy devices and builds on their channels forever. And like, it's out there. You just have to put your own energy into it and finding it and manifesting it, because it's here, and let's make it happen for all.
It took me 15 minutes to find her channel. I still can't find his channel at all.
And so this one's Carla B. Conniption. It's the channel name.
Definitely hope you guys sync and get onto OdySee, because like it's super easy. You'll get right at the top, and Rumble too. Like found.
This is kind of warm too.
That's the quartz wafer.
Pick it up. And it wants to go off. That's kind of cool. See, we put it back down, and it'll go back on.
Yeah. Uses silicon and germanium quartz wafers, and like a barium titanate mixture.
Soldered one wire on the back of the light bulb. See the light on that. And taped on the wire on the other side. And this is DC. This is positive on top, negative on bottom. 50 to 70 crystal wafers inside. Again, 16-inch
wafers.
Quartz. Treated, frosted.
To go into the wafers in the quartz.
16-inch thick, 30 millimeters in diameter, rare earth oxides. Again,
rare earth.
And you put it on the floor. Or simply walk around with it since it's still running. Oops, it was running.
Bro, you got a Tartarian lamp right there. That is magic.
I'll just go over here then. Oh, there she goes back on the okay. Yeah, so we got a portable.
I mean, you couldn't get it through an airport, but it's definitely amazing.
Oh, maybe get some sunlight on it. That's cool. Good light.
Airport scanners only look at specific frequencies.
I was just teasing. Yeah, I've
running. Okay, good.
I've been covered in fertilizer, gone through an
Taking a
airport
heck of a
with like
chance doing
3
this
bags
because I
of
might get
virtual
zapped.
reality equipment.
Oh, it went off again. Okay.
They'll let you get
I'm
away
back
with a
on
lot.
again.
Just take your 3rd lighter or something.
So there you have it, the famous John K. Hutchinson high-powered crystal power cell. Tunable type.
He had another one that shot out 60,000 volts and nearly blew up a toilet.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's not just a cherry bomb.
Oh, that's delicate stuff, man.
I made
Wow.
it for the Japanese and also
Like adjusting cat whiskers.
So, but that's an important point, is that this is containing a lot of energy. You're saying essentially, and it can contain even more energy.
I'd like to thank a friend in Texas for supplying Earth currency to help me build this device. I buy a lot of the crystal wafers from Xerox Supplies
Serious
and Goodfellow
oxide.
Supplies. Very costly, rare earth treated, vacuum deposit, and all that cool stuff. Anyway, now if I was to put my fingers over here, I get a heck of a shock.
Yeah. The problem with replicating
I'll pick
that
it
is
up here.
rare earths. When China's got all the rare earths.
One would say, what a ridiculous flashlight. Anyway, this is where I started from, this room here. I'm going to just walk around and see what happens here. Fun of it. Well, went off. Okay. That's because I'm moving in Y. Huh. Okay.
Well, okay, yeah.
Try that again.
Yeah, did you see the one where he had a box of a can of it was
No joke. I mean, this is a lot of like how many
here
watts
to
is this
test this
light
stuff.
bulb? It's not LED.
Oh, where should I put it now? I guess it doesn't matter. Oh. Okay, what I was trying to say is moving here causes a slight microflex because it's quite heavy. When you
That's
have
the
a bit of a
brand name,
microflex
microflex.
here, these wafers are just like cat whiskers.
That's so epic.
And no, the name is Johnny Tubes. They're a cell, I believe, right?
What was it now?
Johnny Tubes.
You want me to talk about the Johnny tubes?
Well, yes, please. Now that we have Michael E. Boyd here, or Charlie, did you have questions, Charlie, about these power
Is
cells?
that Michael Boyd? Like
Yes,
Cassie's
sir.
dad? Oh my God. I love you. I'm so glad to see you. This is great. Keep going.
Well, the Johnny tubes are when we get on the coast of what was that?
I heard that.
What was that?
I don't know, but I sensed something before that.
You want to go check it out?
Yep.
I mean, we're in a concrete dome, and there's just this big thud.
There's been some weather. I don't know how far north you are from me, but Michael, actually, you know what? It'd be an interesting moment to introduce a bit of your background and research. I've actually, seen you put out a lot of interesting stuff on UAPs and just all sorts of stuff. So it'd be great to hear from you. It's great to see you. How you been?
Great. So I got a question about what I was catching the tail end of the video. What was the crystals that were being used? Quartz?
Right. They're coated.
So you were compressing quartz crystals to produce electricity, essentially.
They're coated with rare earths.
They got a sputtered coat on them or something.
Right. Very expensive. They're like 20 grand for that stack.
Damn, that's a pretty pricey light bulb you got there.
Right. So I mean the John's done all kinds of different devices that give off free energy, but the one that's the most practical is the use of this piezo crystal, the Rochelle salts that he doped. He's done a lot of different types, and what is going to be the safest and the easiest for people to you know,
So
you know,
what we're seeing there, that's a carbon.
What were the Rochelle salts doped with?
we had iron pyrite, I think, was in there. We had, you know, you look at I got it on the video that I did so long ago. Our video that's on there has all the different things that we doped it with. But you don't have to dope it in order for it to work. And then I started working with the mechanics of the actual compound, so that instead of using the Rochelle salts, I made the Rochelle salts at the time of doing the melt. So that's using the cream of tartar and the baking soda. So, and that's when I brought in the sugar into the equation and created the putty. And if you dope the material and you use the putty, and you're getting down to something that's a micron thick, and then you're doping what you doped with is a micron thick, you're kind of, you know, SOL, because you'll short the thing. So I just stayed away from the doping because I was getting so tiny in what I was dealing with. I didn't want the doping to interfere with it. So, but I think that if we go to that step where we have something, I mean, all these, people are doing these, look at these free energy, but look at where the paradigm where people are at. My great uncle, my grandpa's brother, created and invented it and patented the radiator that's on every single fucking car there is. And he did it in a machine shop, and he just made the thing, and then he made another one, and then he made another one. And, eventually everybody used it because cars were overheating. I mean, we need to make something so that not every person having a car had to make a radiator, you know? Now that somebody was making radiators. People don't make their own radiators. They don't do their own solving of their own problems. This generation of humans, if you're driving down the road, guys, and all of a sudden your car stops, you know, what would you do? Now, just think about it for a second. Because what I would do is totally different than what you would do.
Oh, I'd pop the hood.
Yeah, well, you're an old guy. So, all right.
I am a physicist with good training in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering. I know every system in and out of my car. Anyway, I'm a bad example, but it's one of those things of the
good
question.
example that we're not a lost.
I'm a hippie from Santa Cruz. I would put my head right against the hood of that Honda, and I would just listen, and I would burn my hands on it if it was wrong. I'd probably like a little bit of Reiki first to see the heat. That'd be my.
I just had my little head inside of a mouse infested.
Should I play this video of Laser Saber's 12-volt cell system update of these batteries and him running a bunch of stuff off of it?
I was a little terrified to hear John's.
What are the batteries made of?
So let me
I ask if Nancy has any questions before you do that, because she is obviously the source of all of this. Let's hear from her first.
What I'm trying to get to on this is that most people won't even check to see if they ran out of gas. Okay, and then they'll get on their phone and call somebody. They won't
Get
even
alone an oil change that and completely screw their engine the first time they ever buy a car.
Yep, it's the oil change. It's always the oil change. These newbies.
And there are very few people today that will pop the hood and go in there and change some spark plugs. Okay, so there's going to be very few people that are going to build these power cells to run the shit in their house. You know, this is where we're at. And you can complain and talk about all this kind of stuff, but people are just not going to get off their fucking lazy asses and build them. Okay?
So Nancy, I have been listening to all of your instructions. I have taken notes from the beginning, and I've got notes from before we went live. And oh my goodness, yeah, I think you are one of those fantastic people that have ever existed in reality. So how, like, if DC versions of this are possible, how do the AC ones are possible? Like, exactly how do you build these things? That's my big question, because I'm pretty sure we haven't heard that yet.
Well, well, there's a video on how to build them. I made a video.
Oh,
We got
so
a video on how to
I
build.
subscribed to your channel. I found your channel, but your husband, I couldn't find his channel. YouTube
I
will
posted
not
the
let
links
me.
to both of them in the live chat, Adam. And I as well
Okay.
have taken pages of notes. This is actually from our 4-hour conversation the other night on the ingredients, how to make them, and everything. And we will be doing a follow-up stream either this next 1 week or 2 weeks from now, where we all have our materials and make live. Each of us are going to be making these power cells for the first round of production for everybody.
Going to be based.
This for protection. When there's this.
Okay, so yeah, we had posted like 13, 14 years ago on John's channel how to do these. There was like 500,000 million hits or whatever, and then John got into his copyright violation stuff that he always gets in trouble for and got taken down.
Yeah.
And so then I just recently found the video and put it on my channel. So that's been out there, and a lot of people have built the cells and have modified the cells, but I never got to the point of showing how to make the taffy, how to make this gooey stuff, and the different forms and stuff that you can do with it. The ones that give out the AC are ones that have been hit with radio frequencies. It's those are the cylinder ones.
Radiomagnetic
This shape,
bias.
or if you build a sphere, it just does it. You don't have to put it under a radio frequency for it to be AC.
So once you start it, you can start to crystal lattice it. Basically, it grows the way it grows. Is that right?
Once I what?
Once you've started it, does it grow essentially then? Because you've got the crystal, and so
that's the other thing about these guys is that the Rochelle cells like to grow. They do. And the way you stop them from doing that is you get some plasti dip and you dip your whole cell in the plasti dip. It seals it so that it won't do that. And in fact, it creates like a really nice tight pressure in there for you taking off the energy.
see, this sounds to me like, again, the aerogel solution, because then you can kind of herd it the way you want it to grow, and then you'd have an AC supercapacitor labyrinth.
Right.
I like the idea. Do you think the labyrinth is better than a Mandelbrot fractal? Because earlier they were talking about you just following a lightning tree fractal to build your capacitor, but circuit boards, for instance, often use this labyrinth kind of shape. So what's better?
I don't know with these. I know that when I've stacked them in series, I can get to about 6 of them, 6 volts. But if I want to get to 12, I have to put them in like a star pattern. And I haven't been able to get past about 20 doing it that way. And so we had talked about all types of different ways of just making individual cells and loading capacitors, and then we'll just take the energy off the capacitor. The other thing that it's really nice is it'll triple charge a battery, which I thought was really interesting. And then I use the battery. The cell is loading the battery, and the battery is hooked up to the device. So it's just things that we have to kind of mess around with, and I can tell you some of the nuances that happen with them. Yeah, I know the Mandelbrot.
I was just wondering,
Please do share the nuances, though. Please do.
Because things aren't going to grow at right angles, right? So the idea of a fractal has to be the way your labyrinth is functioning if you wanted to continually grow outwards. But then again, maybe you don't, and maybe you're trying to keep it at a certain path or direction. So that's the thing I'm the most curious about is how you would do, like, let's say, like carbon nanotubes. Show me some structure, right? If you were to try to agitate the, using an aerogel to herd this to grow a specific direction, then you'd really have something. And I don't know, maybe not necessarily a nanotube, maybe just nano walls, or nano onion would be the most organic approach, right?
Right.
So the nano onion, you could imagine this being the way to you could grow a crystal a certain amount, and then afterwards you would just maybe put it into a solution to feed it occasionally. I don't know, but then from there it would continue to grow. So you'd have a battery that's not. This is interesting because earlier I was like, okay, what are the buzzwords here? You've got a supercapacitor, you've got a fuel cell, you got a battery, but what is it really? I mean, it's hard to say it's not all of those things because it's basically a crystal that's growing, so it's charging itself. That's trippy.
Yeah, it is. And that's how life works. So you can put this into like a solution and do it on a molecular level.
Ooh, DuckDuckGo, calm down. But yeah, okay.
So, yeah. But so, it's like I said, we're at a different point with human consciousness. Everybody's screaming, why don't we have the free energy? Well, you know why? Because it fucking takes money and it's no longer free. Okay, here's the tools for you to do it, but you're too lazy to do it. I mean, that's just how people are. I mean,
right? Yeah, it's kind of like we're thinking. It's like how much does it cost to liberate the energy? Because it's like this like indebted indentured servant that we have to pay the price to liberate.
So I've got a comment on this. My dad found me at the grocery store 2 days ago and gave me $200. He knows my monthly income is $100 a month. And it was just kind of funny because he handed me this money and he asked me not to break reality with my physics experiments. He was super upset that I might
trying to save reality. No, I was kidding.
No, it's like I'm gonna spend all of this money on food or car insurance or something. Like that's not what I'm gonna do with this sort of thing. But I thought it was hilarious because he is the naysayer of any world you're in whatsoever. He is the naysayer, and I don't know how many people know like an archetypical naysayer, but like that's pretty rare. Like most people don't just say no to everything forever.
Anyway, I think there's a process. So what you do is you start out as a wondrous child with beautiful eyes, and then what happens is you see something on TV. This wasn't always the way it was. It used to be that you read it in the Wells Fargo Wagon magazine or whatever. But you see a thing you want to buy, and it takes a while to get to you. But like you think that it looks so good on the TV, and then when it arrives, it's not what you wanted, and that turns you. That's your first puberty. That's your cynicism. You get no. Nothing's real. The thing I ordered isn't real. Nothing's ever real. And then eventually you get into this kind of conspiracy thing where you're like, hey, every time they're always doing that. They're always cheating me. But then you get into the like Mad Magazine phase where you're like, you know what? If you did it, you could build a hovercraft. You could do it. You could get anti-gravity. You could have some sort of alternative propulsion. It's a little crazy, but it's really on me, because society is not going to do it for me. And if you don't take all the steps, you just stick with the like, I shouldn't buy hair straighteners on TV,
So all the way up to this plan, I mean, anyway, I suppose I have got a family that kind of like half believes me, but they still, let's say tomorrow I figure something out and I go ahead and tell the rest of my family that, I've got this, whatever thing. The assumption is not that we can make any money off of it. It's that we need a large enough company to pretend that we need bought out with not like a little bit of money, but a lot of money. And on the drop of a hat, apparently, from what I'm told, I could have a 50 company or 50 person company totally online with real employees that are making real wages that could prove all of this stuff. And I'm just left with this reaction of, I'm told this, and I'm like, these people believed that I could build what I told them I probably could build, but like the next step on this is, it's not what they're telling me. It's not all of this funding because it's not going to work.
Oh
It's
my
why
God.
I am extremely
There's so many
interested.
places we have to go with this. Michael Boyd, you got to talk a bit about. I mean, like you talk about alt propulsion. I remember you did that talk.
And Michael actually is perfect for this conversation because Mike, you've actually replicated the graphene magnesium batteries that both Mike and other Mike and Jeremiah built. You then made them, so it's like we're working on these other different types of home build batteries. And then Mr. Boyd, you also have patents in a bunch of different like micro transistors and all sorts of cool techie stuff. So I'll let you talk for a minute, sir. You're well qualified for this.
Okay, hold on a second. I just pulled up a slide. So basically what's going on is I have a patent on what's called gravitomagnetism. And what it is there's this energy that's produced by the presence of or absence of matter as it moves. For example, the Earth is rotating about 1,000 miles an hour. So it's all moving, and everything in our universe is moving. Hold on.
Do you have a patent number I can go look up?
Several, and yes, I'll try to. Michael, if at the very bottom there's a button it says present. You click on it, it'll open up, and then I think you'll want to. There's 3 tabs on the top, and you'll want to go to window or something like that to share
slides.
Also, I think, am I right that you saw? You see the Catalina UAP too,
First,
right?
you hit share screen, and then when it share screen opens up, it's either entire screen, window, or internet tab should be the options. And if you go over to window, then in that area should be the option to share the slide or picture you have up.
Oh, I see. Share screen. Okay.
Yeah, that Ormus though, especially alchemy seed oil when you do the sprouted seed, that's amazing stuff. Good thing to do.
I had a patent on that and I let it go into the public.
Very Ben Franklin of you. That's awesome.
That's the best way to get something out into the world. You get a patent because that can't be suppressed, and then you let it go.
Yep.
This one.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing, because I feel like you saw.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah, you did see you saw the Catalina UAP though, right? That's also correct, Michael.
What? Say again?
You saw the Catalina UAP.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see it personally. I basically
you studied it.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of information on that. I can share.
That's
too.
interesting.
So,
Yes, there's a whole bunch there that kind of answers some of the stuff Adam was talking about.
So,
yeah, go to
so what I actually can show you some of that. So what I'm showing you here is this is basically what my patent is that it's going to issue on November 11th. And essentially on your hard disk in your computer, there's this platen, the little disk that spins around. And in the center, there near the opening, is a ring where they put these little nanobumps with a laser, I think called a YAG laser. And you can see there's a little image of that there. And essentially what happens is when your computer's not in operation, the head with the read-write head sits over that region. It's said to park there, and they call that zone, they call it the landing zone. So now all these little nanobumps are what are called a quantum dot. And so what I do with my invention is I take the gravitomagnetism signal from each quantum dot, and I can map out the surface of the disk and basically get a map of all the millions of little dots on that in that zone there, the landing zone.
There you go.
And then I break it up into what's called a sector, which is like a section. Like say you got 360 degrees, each there's 0, and then 1 through. So I have 360 sectors that I could break it up into, for example. And then, so what I do is then I map it out, and then I randomly pick one of those sectors, and I create what I call a hard key. And then I have a soft key, which is like or what you call a public key, which is like your password, for example. So now what this does is it makes your data so that you can't hack the data because it's got it's topographically protected information.
Right.
So it's like a thumbprint. Each surface of each disk on the planet and every disk drive of the planet has its own little thumbprint. And so it makes it so that your data is immutable. Now, my goal here is to take this to replace Bitcoin. Because see, what Bitcoin does is it takes these chips, and it tries to solve a puzzle to figure out the right numbers to make a block in a blockchain, and that's how it works. And they do it. What they do it with is like a special computer with special ASICs in it, and that basically that's called mining. And so they're looking for this magic number, and that uses a lot of energy to do that. In fact, it uses huge amounts of energy, and so as Bitcoin gets more used, the problem gets worse and worse. So I replace that with these little nanobumps. It's a direct peer-to-peer transaction. There's no central bank in the middle, so you can't manipulate it, and you can't hack it. So and also it actually creates energy. It doesn't use energy.
So I've got a question.
Itself.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I've got a question, mostly because I gave up on physical spinning hard drives a while ago because I thought they were not that useful because I've lost a lot of data on them. And I switched over to solid state hard drives. And I suppose it's like, anyway, it's like Bitcoin mining is absolutely insane. Like it does it. If you look at how much power these things actually use,
well, that's that's an intentional problem, though. That doesn't. It's not necessary. That's in order just to slow down the inflation of creation of coin.
Well, so I have a question.
Go ahead.
So say, we create a bunch of these units that are usable and, size of your hand can power a house kind of a thing, right? And so I go to the guy in the Amazon and all he's got is a banana. So I'll take the banana and I'll put it in a barter system. And then somebody might want a banana and they can trade whatever they want in it. So we could actually when I say we could create a new currency, this is a method to do it. But do it using a bartering system.
Bananas are kind of like volcanic potassium batteries. I can see that.
How many people realize here that the United States was formed with a 1.5% tax on something like tea, and now you look at how much tax the middle class person has on anything, it's over 50%. We are absolutely taxed into oblivion. If people could have some sort of free energy, anything, I mean, it doesn't really even matter how efficient it is at this point. Does it? I suppose I'm surrounded by people here that are probably pretty adept in history. But in the 1860s, there was an enormous movement of hand tools and what people could do with those things and where they would lead, and lack of needing electricity at all. And I remember this was summarized by some guy I was listening to on some Saturday morning on a radio station, transmitting it out with like 500,000 watts. And a caller asked him, do you ever think it's possible for the average house to be energy independent? And the guy that was being interviewed, he just busted up laughing. He said the average home in the 1860s was energy independent. What makes you think with our modern technology we can't do it now? Like,
well,
even if
in the 1600s, into the 19th century, actually, I think it wasn't until 1776 that it was legal for certain kinds of machines to be brought to the Western Hemisphere, because the Virginia Company wanted to triangular trade to bring the raw materials back to the refineries in Europe, in Britain, so that they could keep a control over the colonies, not having them industrialize or having them refine the resources themselves.
Well, absolutely right. So if you go look at this thing, why oh why did the power grid in the United States, when it was made, the whole electrical power grid, there's a bunch of farms out in the middle of the country, of which this was something like $150,000 to put these, that electricity out there. What were they really doing? Because these people were paying like $4 and $5, $3 power bills a month, leaving all of their lights on, all of their heaters, everything. It's inflation is totally there. We're now 1,000 times what they paid for their power bill. What did they really accomplish other than completely destroying every hand tool industry that popped up at the time? Because remember, electricity means you don't have to turn some little knob somewhere.
Man, when you look into hydroelectric, it just blows your mind. When you look into all the 19th century hydroelectric systems that powered trolleys across Sao Paulo, Minneapolis, New York City,
Okay, so we're doing repeating patterns. We're doing the repeating patterns. Do you
Agreed.
see that?
This is the repeating pattern. I absolutely agree. And the only thing I ask you is, how do we break it? Like, I don't know how to break it. Like, my dad is giving me money because he knows I'm poor.
I want to
see. Bails me out.
I want to see Michael's. So, Michael, you're going to show some stuff about UAPs and Catalina, and so I think it all ties together in how this is controlled. This technology is around; it's been around for a long time. You look at NIMSA, and you can see how it goes back centuries, not decades. So, looking at some of the government and para-government, Lockheed, Skunkworks, whatever, CampX, these different groups that are working on this technology. I mean, you can see the alternate propulsion being used and what it does.
So I got a presentation here. It's about the Tictoc UAP.
All right, there we go.
So let me try doing this again. Slideshow.
Last time I went to Catalina Island, I'm guessing it's not what I'm going to see now.
I'm not sharing though, am I?
No, you have to re-hit the present and share.
Okay, let's see here.
And also remember that, like, a fair number of people, like, their screen is maybe 2.5 inches wide.
Yeah.
Understand. No, I'll blow it up as soon as I get to it. Okay. Where did it go?
Well, I'll talk while he's looking for that. So the issue is that in order to affect change, we have to be non-fractal. Okay, we can't do these repeating patterns. And the only way that happens is by choice. So it happens when the choice is made to, and the thought is the word is the act, the choice is made, so the action happens. So it's not just a potential out there that we can change things, it becomes the reality through our actions. And so we can talk and bitch about all the dumb fucking shit that people here before have done. That doesn't matter. What matters is what we do.
So, can you guys see this now?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't. It says push the button that says hide though, because I can't read the rest of the Dark Side comic here. It says along with antimatter and dark
matter.
If
I say hide, is it going to stop here?
Yeah, just no, there you
go. Okay, cool.
Along with antimatter and dark matter, we've recently discovered the existence of doesn't matter, which appears to have no effect on the universe whatsoever. I like it.
So, Nancy,
so, here we go.
I do believe you were.
I'm going to give you a little background physics on what's going on here, so that you guys understand how the Tic-Tac works. This is basically so. A diode is this thing. It's a semiconductor material where you have P and N junction connected to two electrical terminals. The P side of the junction has an excess of protons called holes, also called acceptors. The N-type side of the junction has an excess of electrons called donors.
Junction diode. Properties
known as radioactive element.
Formation of the PN junction. The P-type semiconductor has an excess number of holes. Therefore, holes are the majority carriers of charge in P-type semiconductors, as shown. Similarly, N-type semiconductors has an excess number of electrons. Therefore, electrons are the majority carriers of charge in N-type semiconductors, as shown. The combination of P-type and N-type semiconductors results in a junction. This combination has many applications in electronic devices. When a P-type semiconductor is suitably joined to an N-type semiconductor, a contact is established between them and is called a PN junction. Formation of depletion region. The PN junction formed out of the P-type and N-type semiconductor separates P-type semiconductors from the N-type semiconductors. However, because of the contact, some of the electrons from the N side enter the P side. Similarly, some of the holes from the P side enter into the N side. So, at the junction, these electrons and holes combine with each other. The hole and electron neutralize each other on such recombination as shown. Therefore, in the region close to the junction, only negative ions are left behind on the P side and only positive ions on the N side. This results in the formation of a narrow charged region on either side of the PN junction. The N-type semiconductor close to the junction becomes positively charged, and the P-type semiconductor close to the junction becomes negatively charged.
That's
on
a power
either side of the junction, the region
Right.
D
That's love. That's the polarity.
That's
what's
on the N-type side of D, no free
I'm
electrons.
pretty sure Nancy said something and we couldn't hear it.
Could you pause it maybe, Michael?
Region of D, only immobile donor and acceptor ions exist.
Let's see here. Yeah.
That's what's happening on the power cell.
It's also what's happening with Love and Scanlon, at Coral Castle, talking about the Sweet 16, the idea of a virgin field, that you're creating a polarity that is positive on one side, negative on the other side. But really all you're doing is you're taking what's already there and you're realigning it to create a perfect field, as opposed to adding, people are like, oh, you're putting more energy into it. No, you're just turning it.
The middle region's called, in the red, is called the depletion region. and there's basically the very middle. There's a what's called a gap, and they call that the band gap. So in any case, it's almost over, and then
The region close to the PN junction is depleted of mobile charge carriers and is called the depletion region.
So that little automated voice is not talking about charge separation at all.
Electric potential difference of
We'll get there.
between the edges of 1 and 2 of D. This potential difference VD across the junction is called the potential barrier, as it prevents further movement of holes and electrons. This combination described becomes a PN junction diode.
So that's the barrier. That's important because when we talk about quantum tunneling, we're talking about that barrier again.
And Adam, elaborate. You were saying you had some thought about it was something missing in the context.
Oh, it's absolutely like the number one thing people miss in all of the Tesla coils is charge separation. He even talked about it. It's that this is something that it's a very large field that's happening. It's happening in the same direction over and over again. Because remember, Tesla talked about his coworkers that had been actually killed by the DC power plants turning on the electricity. Nobody ever got killed by turning it off. Bunch of employees got killed by turning it on. Now that's going to be a very interesting data point. This is not subjective. This is not something anyone's going to look at or whatever in the world they're looking at. Anyway,
They probably didn't have their ground strap on.
Well, it's why I am desperately like this whole thing. I wonder, like, Nancy, please tell us, how do you make an alternating current version of this thing?
How do I make
And because I have been trained in standard physics in all of the rest of this, there is someone else trying to train me in all the alchemy, and I do not necessarily understand his point of view because it's
Charlie's showing you how you make
it's
it.
What I heard
literally
was
nonsensical points of view.
Let's look at what Charlie's got here.
This image here is a image of my invention. What it looks like. It's taken the hard disk platen, and I fabricated these little nano bumps and nanopits on the surface along a radius, kind of like shown here. And at the lower left, you see the cross-sectional view of the device, where you have this thing that looks like kind of like a sled. That's called a slider, and that's where the head assembly sits, and that's like on the lowest point of the slider. That's where the head is located. And then below on the right, there's a cross-sectional view of what's on the hard disk platen. So basically, the magnetic layer is real thin. It's only 30 nanometers. And
instead of a disc, what if you used a Mobius?
Well, it has to be moving. That's the only key. It'll work with a tape drive too. So.
Well, you can have a Mobius connected by two alternating spinning discs and a Mobius going in between the two.
Yeah, as long as you can get the read-write head near the moving surface. So now let's go to the next slide here. This is the actual drawing of what the device looks like. And on the left, there's like what's called an assembly diagram. It shows the disk platen rotates counterclockwise, shows where the read-write head is, shows the head actuator arm and the disk drive motor. It shows the circuit, the power line conditioning circuits above it. So that's now I'm going to show you some data and show you what it means. So basically, we're going to talk about gravitation is slower than the speed of light in the context of frame dragging. So now what I have is I have my disk spinning counterclockwise. So and so those little nanobumps and nanopits are little squares, and they have like a square edge. So when the disk in this case bump edge goes under the magnetic sensor, it detects that change in the angle of 90 degrees at the speed of light. And then and you can see that on the right, there's another pulse that's going down. That's when the edge of the bump goes down. What's that signal in the middle? That's the gravitational induction signal. So we observed a downward polarity. We see that signal
You
on the right.
sneaky devil, Michael. You're telling us this is for hard drives, but this is really for anti-gravity, and you're just saying,
No, this isn't anti-gravity. I'll get there though.
I see where you're going now. I can see where you're going.
Okay, so this but this is a gravitational induction signal.
Right.
There's magnetic induction and there's gravitation.
Whatever. So what is gravity versus magnetism or spin state? Like, how are you describing it as a different quality?
Well, gravity is produced by the presence or absence of matter moving. Okay, the disk is moving. It's got a little square, and when the little square bump goes under the sensor, it makes this gravitomagnetic signal.
Right.
And then there's a time difference of 1 microsecond. That's the scale here, between the first electromagnetic induction signal on the left and the gravitomagnetic signal, the big broad one, on the right.
So Anthony asked, how do you know the difference between, or how are you sure that it's the gravitational effect as opposed to the capacitive effect?
Well, if it was capacitive, it would be, the shape would look very different, and it wouldn't have the surface topography embedded in it.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to jump.
So now, if you look at the
really quickly, I hear Nancy. Sorry, Nancy, go ahead. Say what you said.
Go ahead, Nancy. Sorry.
Okay, so like I recorded the Hutchinson effect signal that we had put into these Johnny tubes, and I did that using a Mac computer where I could pick up negative 60 decibels, and that's how I checked to see if these Johnny tubes had the signal on them. And when I slowed that down, I went to like 1/100th of the speed. You know, I would slow this thing down, and I keep looking at the wave pattern that was created by the audio tone, which is actually the vibrations coming off the magnetite, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a jagged sine wave with an isochronic pulse just before the positive side of the sine wave would hit its peak, just, you know, maybe 10 degrees back kind of a thing. And so that is similar to what I'm looking at on the screen here.
Oh, cool.
So
that's cool.
What John does. And so when I take that jagged sine wave with the isochronic pulse, and then I slow it down to 1/100th of that speed, and basically it would zoom me in on one of those jags on the sine wave. And what did I have? I had a jagged sine wave with an isochronic pulse. I mean, I took this down to 1/1000th, you know, of a speed on this thing. I worked on it for an entire day. So the signal that John creates is fractal. And so those jags in there are actually the isochronic pulses. And that he builds these layers and layers of this fractal signal.
So, well, I'd be happy to share the data. You guys could look at it. I've got like all those nano bumps and nano pits, and you could look at it. But let me continue though.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So here, go ahead.
Well, I'm
Sorry.
just saying that I'm seeing the same thing in your work as what I saw in analyzing the signal for the anti-gravity. So I concur.
Nice.
So next slide after this one is the anti-gravity one. So the presence of matter moving produces a pull force and a negative polarity gravitomagnetism. The image is of a cross-sectional view of the GMR read head with a piezoelectric crystal mounted on the backside of the head slider. The GMR read head is sensitive to magnetic field changes, while the piezoelectric crystal on the back of the slider is sensitive to the physical motion of the head slider. A 10 micron by 10 micron square bump of around 32 nanometer height measurement results are shown. On the left is a piezoelectric glide head signal where is observed an undampened physical pull against the head slider against the force of Earth gravity is shown. On the right, the GMR sensor shows a negative polarity gravitomagnetic signal. This infers the presence of matter on the spinning disk produced a physical pull force and a negative polarity gravitomagnetism. In this example, we observe the gravitational frame dragging is 1 microsecond. The absence of matter moving produced a push force and a positive polarity gravitomagnetism. The image is a cross-sectional view of a GMR read head with a piezoelectric crystal mounted on the back side of the head slider with a nanopit on the surface of the disk. A 10 micron by 10 micron square pit around 52 nanometer depth results are shown. On the left is the piezoelectric glide head signal, where is observed a short dampened physical push against the head slider against the force of gravity. On the right, the GMR sensor shows a positive polarity gravitomagnetic signal. This infers the absence of matter on the spinning disk produced a push force and a positive polarity gravitomagnetism. In this example, we observe the gravitational frame dragging is 1 microsecond. This also infers there exist two different time frames, one for matter or the lack thereof, and another for electromagnetism or EM. This is our context of space-time moving relative to the GMR sensor. Relative to the sensor, the nanopit moving under it creates expanded space-time. And when the nanobump is moving under the sensor, it creates a pulse of denser space-time. So now what I have here is two 3D images that were taken. This is actual AFM data, or atomic force microscope data, on the 10 micron square pit and the 10 micron square bump data that I just showed you guys. So now if we take the data by varying the area of the nanopits and nanobumps on the surfaces spinning disk, the graph of the measured gravitational forces derived from the gravitomagnetic induction signals recorded. A gravitational diode curve is observed for variable area pits and bumps. The p-type side of the gravitational diode is the acceptor side of the junction, producing positive gravitational induction and a push force with a third order polynomial of a hyperbolic force like that of a balloon. The N side of the gravitational diode is the donor side of the junction, producing a negative gravitational induction and a pull force with a second order polynomial of a parabolic like normal gravity. And the bottom here, I put that 1 nanonewton force equals 1 volt of readback signal that I calibrated with a magnetic force measurement of a 10 micron by 10 micron square pit of around 200 nanometers depth. So now I'm going to talk about gravitation is faster than the speed of light in the context of quantum tunneling. Here we have our barrier. Quantum tunneling is an example of the quantum entanglement phenomena. Quantum tunneling is a quantum mechanical phenomenon where a subatomic particle passes through a potential barrier, e.g. an event horizon, instantaneously. The hypothesis is that matter, e.g. mass or gravitons, has having properties of both waves and particles. In the barriers where the entanglement occurs, but protons don't really move, they vibrate. You might say they all sing and dance to the same tune.
Yeah, it's a field. I love it. And so it's so great because people always misunderstand. So people always talk about Ken Wheeler and they get upset about the word gravity, but the way you're referring to it in terms of weights, densities, the actual interaction, this is all the real shtick. This is the truth right here.
Charge separation is such a larger issue on all of this stuff. Charge separation.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna skip this part, but you guys, if you look, there's this Sabina Hosfield has a good explanation of the tunnel effects. You might.
Have you heard that quantum mechanics is impossible to understand? You know what? That's what I was told too when I was a student.
That's awesome. I don't want to see that.
So now this is what I call my postulate for the theory of everything, or TOE, and that's my big toe there. Gravity is a property of matter, but not a property of electromagnetism. The hypothesis is that protons, holes in the semiconductor junction, and all forms of matter and their presence in our location in the universe is the source of the attractive force of gravity in this vicinity of matter. The other novel thing is the absence of matter produces a repulsive anti-gravity force that is much weaker than gravity force and balloon light. Electrons, however, do not contribute enough mass to really affect gravitation in a significant way. The geometry of matter, or lack thereof, caused a force field to be produced that I could measure.
Oh man, so okay. Anybody need to pull out their swords and get into a duel? I guess now.
I'm gonna skip through all this.
No, it's cool. I love it. I don't skip through it. I was just curious. Don't skip through it. Don't skip through it. I just go back. I just was thinking.
I have no duel at all. I love this idea. The only thing I've really lost is my voice recorder to record the whole conversation. And I just found it.
Oh, this is such great stuff. Michael, this is such great stuff. And then the idea also, can you just go back one page for a second so I can look at this? Just because the separation here of electromagnetism from the experience of, and we can call it dielectricity or whatever, but it's not. We can go further even to say what has to do with the real empirical experience of the weightedness, the unbearable lightness and heaviness of being. I don't know. So it's interesting because you're not throwing away the word, and I appreciate it. It's interesting you're trying to take it to the right place.
So, but basically, I have all the general relativity and then special relativity explanations of this stuff, and along with all the papers and references and stuff. But
Einstein, Lemaire, MK Ultra, right.
It's kind of boring.
I've got a question about that whole boring idea. Have you ever, you and Nancy both, I've got a question for both of you. Have you ever heard of this guy called Wilbert Smith? Do you know this guy? Have you read his book called The New Science?
No.
Smith.
Never heard of him.
That sounds familiar.
Wilbert Smith?
Wilbert Smith.
Yeah, Smith coils. We built them. Long time ago.
So now what I was going to show you guys is some examples of natural gravitational diodes.
Yeah, the ATP this is a good. Okay.
So let's start with it. So basically I broke it down into ATP synthase, a proton motor that powers life, positive terrestrial lightning in the form of elves, blue jets, and sprites, solar flare and coronal mass ejection, supermassive black hole centered local universe. So basically, protons power life. In the semiconductor, the flow of protons is known as hole flow, while the flow of electrons is known as electron flow. It's because of the movement of protons that ATP synthase, and this is an image of live ATP synthase, it powers everything that is alive. It's on Earth. Every animal.
I don't know if you like Ken Wheeler, you're going to say that protons are just transgender electrons, but just come on, hear him out.
Transgender.
No,
definitely.
I am actually really interested in what he's saying right now. Don't say.
Okay,
anyway, I'm really interested in what he's saying, mostly because I have actual genetic issues in the middle of what he's talking about right now.
Okay. So a postulate is that gravity produced by the spin of protons is the basis for all life, plants, animals, and fungi. The gravitational motor using protons to power protein motors in every cell on the planet. Check out this video of ATP synthase represented through human motion. The molecular motor moving proton H+, the power plant in the cell.
This is amazing.
So my internet is like so broken, and I think my phone gave up on it, but it does this. But anyway, it sounds like you are a background sound of like something like the people from India might offer.
Michael, explain this video because the ATP is processing.
So basically, it's a spinner, and it takes this. Hold on, let me. So now this is representing a membrane, and what it does is it's this protein that takes the hydrogen atom and spins it around, and basically carries the charge across the membrane. It takes ATP and ADP, basically it breaks it into what are called subunits. It has an asynchronous protein shaft. So it's kind of like a fractal power supply. It's the best way to describe it. And it's what powers you and me and everything else that's alive. And it uses protons.
The one thought. It's the one thought. It's the one. It's what I talked about at the very beginning of this. It's the thought that's the word, that's the act. It comes from the unconscious. It's all the same.
It's conscious.
Well, it is. Anything that moves is conscious because motion, fell into the void, moved in the void, bounced back, created this Mobius, the infinity symbol. It's the yin yang symbol, and that's what it is. And all of these things that you're showing are just things that are an ancient
They're
symbol.
different manifestations of the same phenomenon. I agree.
Right. Okay.
So positive terrestrial lightning in the form of blue jets, sprites, elves, they're accelerated protons. They're protons. So in a linear accelerator, you accelerate electrons. In a cyclotron, you accelerate protons. It's in a spiral. So what's going on with protons is they're positive lightning. So let's talk about elves and blue jets.
A view from above is helping scientists figure out how blue jets are born. This is a visualization of one over the Pacific Ocean. Blue jets are like lightning, but they shoot straight up from storm clouds into the stratosphere. The gases there give the lightning its blue color. But it's the flashes that appear before the blue jet that have scientists excited. They think these flashes somehow cause blue jets.
See that
but what
circle
causes the flashes is still a mystery.
that comes up next.
Beautiful.
So sprites.
This is incredible video of a sprite. Now, sprites have been captured on film and in images a lot in the history of humanity or modern man, but they've never been captured with a 10,000 frames per second camera on video like this. And you can really see it's an incredible sight. And it was captured in Japan. And what a sprite is it's basically an electromagnetic charge that's up in the upper atmosphere above a lightning storm. And so what this is going to allow for is researchers to look at this video and maybe, use this technique to capture more sprites in the future and learn how a sprite affects lightning and how a sprite is created and what causes it. It's really incredible. There have been pictures of sprites, video of sprites taken from way above from the International Space Station before, but again, never in this detail. And you can just really see its beauty and its power and the fact that that is definitely something that neither you nor I has ever seen before. This is incredible video of it.
So now solar flares and coronal mass ejection. A solar flare isn't just an explosion of hot gases. It pushes out waves of light at the speed of light. That includes light we can't see, including radiation in the form of X-rays and gamma rays. But another solar event called a coronal mass ejection, a CME, can cause serious problems for electrical systems here on Earth. During the CME, the fluctuations of the sun's magnetic fields cause a large portion of the surface of the sun to expand rapidly, ejecting billions of tons of particles out into space.
Now that's what I call a really big penis. And if you understand these systems, these are the Y that's being injected into the system. All of these are repeated patterns of how the Y comes in, the XX being the fractal. So these are repeated patterns of how the new is brought in. And maybe that's what we need to do to bring in this new concept of our consciousness and our energies, and understanding this system. So
the thing that I wanted to bring up about this though, this coronal mass ejection. So the solar flare, when it goes off, if Earth's in the line of sight of that solar flare, it takes 7 minutes to hit the Earth. The coronal mass ejection, on the other hand, is like a 1,000,000-mile wide wave in the ocean. And it takes 3 days to get here. And that's the gravitational pulse that I showed. It's delayed. There's a time delay between the light signal and the gravitational signal from the sun hitting the Earth.
But that's because you're accepting that we can only comprehend those that we aren't able to act as quantum beings that we are.
But I'm getting to that next. So the thing is about the CMAs is it provides a like anti-gravity has a pre-signal. Basically it time travels to the future. So what happened is I have this little video, and I'm talking about the sun's anti-gravity pre-signal in solar flare slows the radioactive decay rates on the opposite side of the Earth from the sun a day before the event occurs. So there's something going on. There's some kind of pre-signal in the future before this event happens.
For many years, a scientific controversy has been brewing far from the spotlight of mainstream media. How constant are physical constants? For decades, the scientific consensus has been that true constants, such as the speed of light and the gravitational force, remain unchanged over time. But in recent years, more and more evidence has challenged this assumption. A telling example is now posed by observed changes in supposedly constant radioactive decay rates in relation to solar flares.
In 1904, Ernest Rutherford wrote the book, Literally, on radioactive decay. In this book, he states, in no uncertain terms, the constancy of the rates of radioactive decay. This allegation was initially shown to be consistent with experiment, and so was generally accepted, not to be double-checked for another 8 decades. It was only 3 decades ago that a rogue experimenter from Brookhaven National Labs published the results of a 4-year study into the decay rates of silicon-32 and chlorine-36. His results were astonishing. He found a seasonal variation of about 0.1% in silicon and about 0.3% in chlorine, in addition to a monthly variation. Physicists of the day were not amused. How could radioactive decay rates, long known to be constants, possibly vary?
Physics has no mechanism for radioactive decay. It's just a probabilistic theory. And very early in the piece, when Ernest Rutherford said the decay rates appear to be constant, this was taken as a license for geologists in particular who've been looking for means to date the age of the Earth to suddenly register geology as a hard science instead of a descriptive science like geography. And ever since that time, any anomalies in decay rates and so on have tended to be swept aside.
The Brookhaven National Labs report caused a small yet intense splash at the time, but discussion on the topic ceased for the next 12 years, and they were largely forgotten. In 1998, the PTB in Germany broke the silence by announcing the results of a 15-year study. Seasonal and monthly variation was confirmed in radium-226.
I'll bet it was.
Later, Falkenberg announced a seasonal 0.37% variation in hydrogen-3. As if the announcement of annual and monthly cycles weren't enough, nature had yet another surprise in store for a pair of Purdue researchers. While searching for new methods of random number generation via nuclear decay, Jenkins and Fishback recorded 3 drops in manganese-54 counts of about 0.1%, corresponding with the 3 December 2006 solar flares.
One of the effects that was discovered was on the night side of the Earth, the radioactive decay decreased roughly a day before a flare appeared on the sun. And this effect was noted a number of times. So it was reproducible. The question then was, how do we get an effect happening on the other side of the Earth, on the night side of the Earth, away from the sun, being registered through the Earth?
The Purdue researchers who discovered this correlation initially tried to avoid speculating about this problem and published just the correlation. but their submission was rejected on the grounds that there was no known mechanism for radioactive decay counts to decrease in anticipation of a solar flare. Being forced to come up with a mechanism, they were later able to publish a paper where they suggest that a massive increase in solar neutrino production prior to the flare is responsible for the decreased counts.
Yeah,
The reason is that the neutrino weakly interacts, and beta decay is via the weak force. Unfortunately for that theory, it was already established in 1998 that variation is present in substances which alpha decay, which is via the strong force. Neutrinos can't be the effector.
So just ignore it.
Are there explanations to be had in an electric universe?
The point is that all matter is connected in the universe. All of this suggests that it is much simpler than the neutrinos. It is this direct connection between all matter in the universe. And
That's
if
fair.
quantum theory is telling us anything at all, it's telling us that it's due to resonant effects in matter, so that the atoms that are disturbed on the sun leading up to a solar flare, that disturbance, that change in the resonance of those atoms, is available to radioactive atoms on Earth. In other words, this direct connection can invoke a change in decay rate. And this appears to be what's going on. And when it comes to quantum resonance effects, it also suggests, and this has been borne out by some experiments which have been forgotten about, and that is that low frequency electromagnetic resonances would induce changes in radioactive decay. So what we're looking at there is being able to influence the dance of the nucleus, if you like, by sending in a signal which beats with that nucleus, and in the process can either increase the instability, that is, increase the radioactive decay rate, or slow it down depending on the interaction. It does give us the opportunity of thinking about getting rid of radioactive waste.
Michael, can you pause it for a second?
In a simple fashion than trying to bury it. This means many things to science. It means that quantum theory.
Oh, Mike, it's the noise going off, the cymatic that's playing in that video.
Okay, so this whole issue with the radioactivity, I don't know if you guys realize it, but that's what we've been working on since the Gulf of Mexico when we were working on the BP oil disaster. And this is kind of like really redundant, and some of it isn't accurate, what's being presented. When the Soviet Union broke up, there was a group of scientists that was funded by the Star Trek producers, and they got together for a conference on the issue with the problems with the breakup of the Soviet Union and the nuclear problems. You know, that there could be a big blow up. So how do we deal with the nuclear contamination? And out of that, a white paper was written. It was given to the states and it was given to the federal government, and this is how you handle it. And top of the list was John Hutchinson. There was no response to that white paper. So Ken Shoulders put together a presentation and brought it to MIT in 2000 what?
2005.
2005. It was 2005, and it is exactly what now is coming out, you know, and they're talking, you know, of course, that it is a disharmonics, if you will, and bringing the correct harmonics to the radioactive element brings it to rest. It's real simple stuff. So, but going on about, you know, elimination of radioactive contamination and stuff that is being presented here is kind of like, guys, you know, we are past that.
Yeah, well, this was, as I recollect, they were talking about the 90s. This is the 1990s. That's when this was, that's the time frame of that presentation.
And that's when these guys got together from the breakup of
Soviet Union, yeah.
Yeah, but it was just funny, you know, because you got these guys who are saying they're standing around in the rain, all wet, saying that there's no weather. You know, that's what's
yeah. So the thing with contamination by radioactive contamination is that you can't feel it unless you're really getting your shit burned. But I mean, the entire planet is fucked, okay? Everything on here has been genetically modified by Fukushima. There's absolutely no question about that. But we also know that what we're doing is restoring the life and the genetics. We saw it with our own eyes when we got to the ground zero area on the southern coast of Oregon, and all the trees were burned out. And we started our work there, and those buggers came back to life. And I'm not talking about deciduous trees. I'm talking about the pine trees. And once you burn out pine needles, they don't come back, and they came back. So we just need to move forward. We need to take what we have, and we need to move forward. And we need to do that. John and I, we don't care if anybody else does it with us. We do it. If you guys want to do it and not talk about, well, somebody did that and this is going on here and how evil and fucked up those guys are.
Oh, that was mainly for Adam's benefit, right? So, because Adam asked the question, like, why aren't we seeing this? Where's, shut up and take my money, right? And then we're like, well, here's why you don't, but here's why it does exist. And it's important because otherwise people think there's why else would it, otherwise it's grifters faking it unless it exists and they're hiding it and you can make it yourself.
Right. So we'll show that you can make it yourself. We just continue making it and making it happen. But see, it's the crux of this is we are doing, you are participating in your own creation. Okay.
So the benefit there is that all these patents are about to expire and they're about to be in public domain, or they already are. A lot of them have been for decades.
I don't give a fuck about patents. I don't give a fuck about theories of physics and theories of what's going on. What matters is what you do. We were in the Gulf of Mexico, the BP oil disaster. I can't tell you the number of people that emailed us and said, you should do this or you should do that. And I said, get your fucking ass down here and help. If your idea is so good, then do it.
People need the vision and seeing the blimps and knowing that they exist and knowing that they can make the stuff. I mean, that's the thing. People think it's like an uphill battle that's never been fought, and it's being fought right now. And there's people that you can do it with.
Well, yeah, it's always been that way. Okay. And I'm saying I want to change that. I don't want it always to be this. We're stuck in this fractal system. Okay. Everything in here is fractal. And that is by our own design. So we choose to change that. I don't know if human consciousness has gotten to this in the past, where they've suddenly realized that they are the one that's doing the creation, that all of this consciousness, everything that is motion, is the one thought. The one thought. And did they get to that point and they fucking disappeared and now we just look at pyramids and shit on this planet and go back and say, hey, these guys were doing shit back 100,000 years ago we can't figure out. We can spend our time doing that and looking up the buttholes of things, or we can look forward. Realize who you are. Realize who you actually are. It doesn't matter what anybody does to you. You got to understand who you are. Doesn't matter, who's evil out there and Putin's doing this and Biden's,
Yeah, it wasn't an evil thing. I mean, we're looking at like Pentagon Papers. Like, this is funny to us. Like, this is why, people ignored obvious things in front of their faces. And so therefore, yeah.
So my hobby is suing the government, just so you know.
Exactly. Yeah, this is how I met Michael originally. I was a student senator at a community college, and I was figuring out, I was like, wait, they have this student activity fund, and they're just wasting it. They're taking all the money, and they're trying to jack it so that they could give it to the board of governors or something weird like that. And, he's like, don't let him.
Right. I understand that. I understand.
So my hobby is suing the government because, see, in in the United States, the First Amendment protects your right to sue the government. It's actually in the Bill of Rights.
Petition for grievances.
It's called the right to petition the government for grievances.
Yeah, okay.
And I've actually won a bunch of lawsuits against the federal government and the state government.
I understand.
But I don't do it for money. I do it for fun.
I understand.
Principle.
I understand, but I was in that system. I wrote bills that were introduced because of the corruption in our judicial system. I had a TV show in Minneapolis, and
it's all corrupt.
And it's all corrupt. And I gotta tell you that when I was on the shore of the Gulf of Mexico with John Hutchinson, and I saw that we had a hurricane coming in, and we're pointing this equipment out there, and the hurricane stops dead out there, a mile or two out, opens the sky above us, oil slicks coming by us. Then I'm watching them as they come by, they disappear, and I can see the frequencies on it and breaking it apart. And I turned to John, I said, this is so much better than fucking dealing with stupid, corrupt judges. So, you know what? There's a time when you realize that the system is fractal. It's going to repeat. It's going to protect itself.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to protect
That
itself.
I agree with.
Change,
Oh, yeah.
okay? And the only way that change happens is when you do something.
That's right.
And
yeah.
It isn't doing something.
If you don't get in the arena, you don't have it. There's no chance at all. It's better to get in the arena and fail and get up again and try again than to, not even try.
But consider that. Are you doing something that's just perpetuating the system? And even, trying to fight and change. And I taught the fucking Constitution.
Well, basically, I don't sow of what I call sow of the flesh, which is basically I sow of the spirit. So, like, I avoid things where I'm going to get personal gain out of it. I do stuff out of joy and love and giving. I love to give.
Okay, well, good. So,
but let me finish. Let me talk about the Tictoc now. All that stuff I presented to you, I want to apply it now to the Tictoc. Explain what's going on with the Tictoc.
Yes.
So now there's this guy. His name is Harold Hal Putoff. He's a deep state. What do you call it? He's a spook.
Yeah, I know. But I don't.
Okay, but he writes some pretty good papers. He also did he was into remote viewing, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did some of them LSD tests.
Oh, you're speaking of the 80s.
There was all kinds of stuff going on back in the 70s and 80s, and
Berkeley.
And he was right in the middle of it. So now he wrote this paper, and I actually chatted with him on LinkedIn a little bit a few years back. And there's a link there to his paper, Advanced Space Propulsion Based on Vacuum Space-Time Metric Engineering.
I'll be Dr. Putoff.
So now basic hypothesis in altered space-time is denser space-time. Time dilates, length shrinks, and it's gravitational energy. In expanded space-time, time shrinks, length dilates, and it's anti-gravitational.
Yep, I read the DESI documents.
Okay, so now this is the table out of his paper, and he's got some equations and stuff to talk about it. So now
stop that. Put that away.
I was exploring time travel in a discussion with Hal. And let's assume the speed of light is our fixed timer reference, with the gravitational interaction time being our variable.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so now you see I have this T equals 0. That's my first electromagnetic spike from the edge of, in this case, a nanopit. So with expanded space-time, time shrinks, but length gets longer. So an anti-gravitational pre-signal would be expected, and we observed that. You can see that signal. There's a signal coming through before the electromagnetic pulse, kind of like we were talking about with the radioactivity effect. There was a pre-signal from the solar flare. So
Correct.
I think so that's what you're getting with expanded space-time, which in my case and on my experiment is the little nanopit. Likewise with denser space-time.
Right.
Time dilates, length shrinks. So a post signal would be expected. We observed that effect. See the post signal there? From our 10 by 10 micrometer nanobump. So now let's go talk about the Tic-Tac. So we're going to talk about general relativity effects first. Greater g-force means time dilates, length shrinks, gravitational energy, while lower g-force means time shrinks, length dilates, anti-gravitational energy. This is based on principles of general relativity, Einstein's theory of geometric gravitation, and the data. So now I'm going to define some of these general relativity features where this you're seeing the actual Tic-Tac video, and I'm going to show you what these features are that we see in the space around the Tic-Tac. These are what are called far field effects. So now my background is I used to make infrared detectors. And so basically, in this case, when something is warmer, it's brighter. And when something is cooler, it's darker. So now the Tic-Tac is the green arrow points to that in the middle. On the right of it is a balloon-shaped brighter region. To the right of the UAP is warmer on our sensor. On our put-off hypothesis, denser in the lighter balloon. The end side of the gravity diode. Now let's go over to the upper left. The dark torus-shaped balloon rotating. It's rotating counterclockwise. Let's see if you can see that. It's rotating counterclockwise, that balloon. Above the UAP, it appears cooler on the IR than the other regions. Under Puthoff's hypothesis, this is expanded space-time. This is what I call my anti-gravity balloon. Remember I said it was a balloon-like? It's on, that's the P side of the gravity diode. Likewise, the darker region to the left of the UAP under Puthoff's hypothesis, expanded space-time, the P side. This is our so-called wormhole. Small, dark, now below that we see this little smart, dark, oval-shaped balloon rotating to the right, and below the UAP is the P side. It's a little, you can barely see it there. It's a little oval. And then, to the right is of that, there's a balloon-shaped brighter region with moving darker regions to the right, and under the UAP is warmer on the IR sensor. It appears to be a gravitomagnetism generation recombination region. It's kind of like the depletion region in that first PN junction video I showed. That's where the charge exchange is happening.
Right.
Okay. So now, special relativity effects. We're looking at the Tic-Tac going warp, essentially, here. above the UAP is the anti-gravity balloon. The left of the image is where the wormhole is open, and the right side is where the UAP is space-time engineering a gravitational bow, like a bow and arrow, where the UAP is the arrow. The video shows the arrow being released, aka warp drive. Notice when it goes warp, the little balloon disappears when it takes off, the one above it.
Okay.
So now let's talk about these. What's going on here, I notice, is that this UAP is going in these little loops. And it's doing that to create increase the angular acceleration of the thing. That's how it's getting up to that. It's not just a physical bow type force, but it's actually taking angular momentum. It's spinning, the thing's going in a loop to pick up angular, to pick up, to increase its angular acceleration. So now I'm broken it down into individual slides here. This is all on. I noticed the magnification of each thing and what I observed. You see the balloon. So I'm going to step through these kind of quickly. So because there's a lot of them. You can see the. So notice that here the balloon, the dark torus-shaped balloon above the UAP is gone. The UAP appears to be moving at a high rate of speed within a short distance. It's like spinning up almost.
Right.
And then look what happens. The IR detector array appears to be saturated by heating in the detector array fan out. That's the readout that goes behind the sensor array is getting warm. And you can see those little lines in the back. That's the little readout lines. You can actually see them because there's little bumps there of indium metal that connect it. The detector array is packaged and housed in a cryogenically cooled vacuum chamber. So it's like, how is that signal getting through the vacuum? And then watch, the UAP disappears as the center background goes black. It's like, whoa. Now look at this. So it's kind of like the Tictoc is trying to cloak itself, is what I think's going on. And it continues to do that. And look at how tiny it looks. It's a little dot there. See, the problem is the infrared can see it anyways. So I think it was trying to cloak it because you look at the background signal there. It's like saturating the detector in the back. Now watch this. It's like powering up the thrusters. See how the dark balloon appears and it's like, wow. And then it goes black again. Then it disappears. Then it reappears. And watch, it's going into the loop-de-loop.
Kind of like your pendulum.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
it's gone. You can see it right at the very left. So, but that's so now the other thing I noticed is it seems to be hitting the aircraft. Remember, I told you how it saturated the readout in the back. So it's like it appears the UAP is hitting the aircraft with an EMP pulse, which saturates the IR detector array.
Do you think it's like, so is it trying, you don't think it's just jamming it, like it's jamming is kind of a side effect or consequence maybe of.
So this makes me feel uncomfortable. I have an unmet need for reassurance that in the future, nonviolent interaction with these UAPs. Obviously, we did something to piss it off. So
They could just be, in
it.
fairness, hot rodding teenagers from Dimension X. But yeah.
So let me go back here to, where is that? StreamYard? Oh, here we go. Stop screen. Is that how I get out? Okay. I think I've monopolized enough of your time, gentlemen.
No, that's pretty interesting, though. I like what you did. See, that's the thing. We need to be able to look at this stuff and be able to say it's being built. It exists, right? That's the thing. The more examples we have of built existing things.
Well, my thought is the Tic Tac is ours.
Right. Yeah. It seems
that
like
it's not.
I almost made a joke when you said you were worried about it being weaponized. Like, well, don't worry, it's probably Canadian, right? Like, it's probably out of SpaceX. Probably out of SpaceX. So Camp X. So John shakes his head. You don't think that it's Camp X? You don't think maybe that the Tic Tac is para-Canadian, para-British?
Does anyone else here?
It's Air Forces, and that's because I've listened to the Commander Fravor or whoever it is talking about it, and different pilots that were involved in it.
Very Lockheed looking.
And they said that the Tic Tac disappeared and then reappeared for unknown reason at the rendezvous point. So how the hell did the Tic Tac know that? Did they read the pilot's mind, or was it the Air Force?
Maybe they're reading the Air Force's mind because it's a telepathic blimp. Haven't you seen the Flight of the Navigator?
So when you send a FOIA request, Freedom of Information request to the Navy, they very politely say, we don't have any information. When you send it to the Air Force, they say, fuck you.
Was that a FOIA request to the Air Force?
So I've got a question about this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of these things that I wonder about is like any of these devices, like how do they work exactly? What are the answers we're really looking for? If you're looking for a freedom of information request, like there's no way they're ever going to answer you anything. Remember, they changed the name from unidentified flying object, some other such thing that I can't remember.
I think you're taking it the wrong direction. I think that you can, if you type in UAP, you will find it. You will find it.
It's about the bringing out of the secret sauces and the acknowledgement that they exist. Technologies are all real. And
yeah, I mean, if you type in UAP patents, you'll find 1,000 patents.
Well, I have this hypothesis that it does exist, and they reverse engineered it from alien spacecraft. But unfortunately, because of my patents, they can't use it because it's protected by my patent. And if they admit they stole it from aliens, then they can't patent it because it's not theirs.
But is the patent, so does your patent protect your intention of use? Because you're saying intention of use is in a hard drive. Does that qualify if you change the actual thing to be used for something else?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at my latest patents, I got all kinds of different applications. That's just one example, is the hard drive. It also, you could do this with a tape drive too. You could send a rocket to Mars, and the whole thing could be powered by a DAT tape.
So by the way, I was a child of the late 1970s, and I do remember tape drives being a thing. And I was completely convinced at the time that they are entirely useless. Because
no way, tape's the best thing.
25-minute program recorded into, I spent days typing in.
Put petabytes on a tape. You just have to use tape compression.
What it is it takes. You could get 6 terabyte on a
tape
drive.
Petabytes. I've got a
internet just disappeared.
Yeah,
just think of
petabyte
the
storage and tape is huge, and then also the idea we were talking about earlier is energy storage, literally using memory tapes to store
I'm
energy.
so sorry.
Energy storage is key, and these batteries and the fact that they're
Tape
producing
batteries.
Internet
sustained
finished.
energy usage deliverable for years, and it's like we got to find Laser Saber, get him on to do a pretty much a decade
Tape is just
update.
butter.
And it's like, have these been running in his garage for the last 10 years, powering like his fans and whatever else he has going into it? And what's also like comparable is, Boyd, you'd be best to answer this with what Mike was calling these Earth batteries, the tube and
Yeah, those are
magnesium.
cool.
Is it? You've made some of these as well, right?
Well, I got the stuff. I haven't put them together yet.
You haven't put it together
I
yet.
have to.
but
I have to
Jeremiah
buy.
and Mike
I have to buy the copper wires. The part I'm missing.
Oh,
And I asked the last time you had one, what's
anybody
the gauge of the wire, the solid core copper wire that you stick in the end there? It looks like it's maybe
10.
maybe 14 gauge. No. That see the on the right there, that wire. How
I'll have to ask Mike or Jeremiah what they used on theirs and the amount that they were like getting off of it. But it's like applying these similar systems towards combining the ideas into the technologies and mixing them is the next steps, right? Like,
right.
And
well, I saw Mike Faraday. He had this the most recent video that he posted. He had a spinning disc in it, and
the end machine.
The end machine, yeah,
absolutely. That's a great one.
And
He's,
so what I'm looking for is, so part of my patent is I have this design for basically hooking the disc to generate power to a battery and supercapacitors. I want to create it so that it'll run itself, essentially. After it's fully charged up, it'll keep itself running. So you basically, this is what I want to do, is build it in like a desktop computer where you just add in the cap, the super caps and the batteries into the computer and make it so it's a self-sustained unit. So you can run your computer pretty much forever, just as long as it's on. And if you turn it off, when you turn it on, it uses a super cap to start it back up.
Right, exactly what you're saying. And Gerald also, if you know Gerald with the hover coils and his alternator systems and how he connects them back up to the motors and is getting essentially 3 to 4 times over unity with the system by like adding 3 belts back onto one motor, and it only takes one of the alternators to like recharge the battery. So then you have 2 more alternators still being powered by this unit that you're now getting extra energy off of. Right, so there's lots of these ingenious designs that actually work and are able to make the efficiency of the units more just like exponentially less. And
so but we're not going to have the change of human consciousness by having, even 1,000 guys making these in their garages. I mean, there's
there already are thousands, I guarantee you now. Let's watch what Laser Saber did with the 12-volt cells, because this is key, the stacking of them and then getting the circuits powering and running things. If we can get 1,000 people to have their garage, like their outdoor little science workshop with the powered cell unit running all of the things that you can just keep building off of and keep sustained, you're going to have a heck of a, and then start producing heat off of the energy too. And
I understand.
we're changing the world.
Yes, I do believe that. But I also believe that the guys in the bush in Africa aren't going to be able to do it.
Exactly. Like we're going to have to switch industrial manufacturing on a larger scale into it once the technology.
I'm a firm believer in taking what already exists and improving on it.
Exactly.
That's why my approach is to making gravitomagnetism to get it so that it's generally adopted, was to use it to create a cryptographic device, a data protection device. Because you could put this in with that right algorithm, you could put it in every computer on the planet that has a hard drive. It's
extra utilization of that
app.
energy potential.
I want something that you don't need any hardware. You just need the software that goes into your computer, and it makes it so your computer can do it. Maybe you add a couple components, or you get the manufacturer to install it when they release their next product line. That's what you want. You don't want to recreate the wheel every time.
Well,
Exactly. We want to get the wheels spinning and have them continuously spinning for as long as possible. Indeed, right?
I'm on the opposite. I don't believe this system is something that I want to continue. I don't want to continue the fractal that we've been doing since the beginning. I want a new change to come in, and that requires that requires really outside the box thinking of these systems. And when I talk about these systems, I'm talking about humans and the systems of patterns of thought that they are currently in. And so, I mean, we have used repeatedly, we've used war to advance technology. And I want it to be something different than war to advance technology.
I'm with you. I don't like what we have is called dominance culture. It was built after because of the agricultural revolution, when we started having haves and have-nots. I support what's called compassion culture.
Yeah, well,
giving is natural. We have to learn violence. We learn it when we're little kids.
Right, and that is an ingrained trait now, and it is read Immanuel Velikovsky. I used to say all kinds of stuff to John, and that's his only response to me for like 2 years. And so I finally read it, and I understood this pattern and system that is in the human consciousness. It's actually on all life consciousness on this planet, and it is something that we chose to do because we are the consciousness and we are living out what we've created. We're making experiences and choosing possibilities, and those things that we don't choose go back into the unconscious that then powers the whole friggin' system.
Well, it's epigenetics is what it is. It's epigenetics, and it's intergenerational trauma, and it's been passed on from generation to generation, but it's not not natural. We can break it. We can learn how to love each other, and we don't need to have dominance anymore.
I agree that we can do that. What I'm saying is that this is the pattern that, I don't know if you heard me in the beginning, but I am the original thought. You are the original thought. We are just playing it out and we decided to have individual consciousnesses to appear in these particular forms in our creation. And we just, and the same as a tree has consciousness, same as the hydrogen atom has consciousness. It is all one consciousness.
That's
that
right.
is doing this. And
You and me are the same life. We're all the same life, and and my hypothesis is that when we're asleep, we're awake, and when we're awake, we're asleep.
No, when we are asleep, we're unconscious, and when we're unconscious, we there's a feedback loop of all the possibilities of things that we did not do that went
Exactly.
back into the unconscious, which is the potential, which is the 0 point, and we can just come back in this fucking shit and do it over and over again, or we can say maybe this is the time that we change the system. We become the penis. We become the Y. We become the difference that changes the fractal into different patterns. And you can say, yeah, you can do that by loving the next person next to you, but you don't even know what the word means. You have no idea what it actually means to love. And there are so many different versions of love. And so we first have to remember, member, okay? We have to remember who we are. I am.
And then if we don't, we just keep we get to try it over and over again.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole concept of don't fuck with someone if you don't want to be fucked with. That's the golden rule. That is it. That is everything. That is the governance of consciousness. That is what we were told. And if that is what is the expression of love, is the respect for someone else's choices, because we decided that we would have individuals making individual choices in this system, and they would not remember who they are. So they could go off and fucking do evil shit, they could do good shit, they could do whatever they want to do. And that's the choice that we made, to have that system. Okay? And I'm just wondering if I know we can, but what do we change it to? Okay? If everybody is having a nice time and all their needs are met, and nobody's hungry, and everybody's got the stuff they want, who's going to go to work and who's going to come and pump my septic tank? That's a really shitty job, literally. And person only does it because they're in need, because they have a lack. And so they go to work to get some money, and they'll take my shit and pump it because they need the money. Okay, now what happens to our system when we don't have that?
Yep.
What happens when the people that we perceive as evil, that they just like to go steal shit, and they can get their anti-grav vehicle and their unlimited energy, and nobody's there to stop them because they're all smoking and toking and having a good time.
Well, you got to know yourself.
No, we are the change. Do you understand that? We have the ability to make massive change in this system, and we have to look at the possibilities of what that change will do. And we have to be responsible to that information. And so, putting out, all these types of systems that have free energy, and you bring it to the masses, and that's wonderful. They don't have to deal with having to pay an electric bill anymore, but they can also use it for things that can be destructive. And you can say, well, nobody's going to use this. Of course they are. They've already used John's technology for destructive things. So
It's weird. It just started pouring rain here.
Yeah,
It's raining
so
pretty crazy here.
well, we got rain here. So when we look at this, first, people are not going to go build a table if they can just go buy one like I did for $5 over at the Goodwill. So if somebody can get their electricity paid for, and okay, but they just work a little bit longer, and then they have to pay a bigger electric bill, and they're not going to. This laser saber, is he running his whole entire house off of his power cells? Or does he just have different little things in his garage that he's doing?
Well, this is amazing. We did some really good stuff here. I know we're like almost 4 hours deep, so I think we should probably do anything else a second. We'll have to put this into a series of stuff for the Real Science series. Michael, I love all the stuff that you're bringing. I want to get you back to talk about more of this stuff soon. And John and Nancy, it'd be so great if we could just continue this on an additional episode, if you guys want.
Yeah, like we'll do something like every couple of weekends where it'll be the progress and the making of the batteries, and like a promise that the next time we do it, it's like we'll all have the cream of tartar, and all of the ingredients ready to go.
I don't plan very much. I'm not very good at planning.
Don't you worry about it, Michael. I'll hit you up.
I'm spontaneous, dude. I like spontaneous harmonization.
You're from my neck of the woods. We'll make it work. And I'll hit you up because there's some things I want to talk about, and you've got some great presentations. There's a lot of stuff that you can go into, so we'll make it happen. But I definitely want to say thank you guys, because for so many people who've never met either one of you or all of you, this was a great introduction to a lot of these things that they kind of heard in the back of their mind: gravity, or electricity, or love, or I am.
I'd say kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Well, we're the same consciousness.
Right.
All a fractal of the same human.
Yeah, we're all the same life.
Right.
When you realize that we're all the same person, boy, compassion comes easy then, doesn't it?
We're just experiencing it in different things. In a tree, in a human, as a cat, as a bird. We're having this experience, and we can have this experience and make it nicer for everybody.
Right.
I think, if we just understand what we're doing, what we're actually doing here.
It's the power of intention. Something like that, I think is what it is. Yeah. I'm gonna say, I don't have the, Bernie, if you want to play an outro, but also guys, we have your descriptions. We have your descriptions and the links below. Check out the links for.
So I put my Twitter address. Somebody was asking where they can find me.
Oh, I only have you on. I'm gonna get you on Twitter. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, check out these links and figure out where you can get all of this information. Like and subscribe to both John and Nancy's channel, and get all of Michael's research. I mean, I'm stoked you have a Twitter now. That's great.
Great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, well, definitely, Michael will set something up again very soon. Yeah, always a pleasure. It's awesome that you're here.
Thanks for sharing your technology. Hi to Dr. Puto. Wishing you guys all well. Take care.
We love you, John. We love you, Nancy.
Absolutely. Much love. So right now I'm just showing off Nancy's YouTube, and then I'm gonna I posted it in the live chat, and then gonna show John's channel as well for everyone out there. Make sure that these legends reach 1,000 subscribers. Let's overcome the YouTube censorship bots. Let's get them out there. Let's make this happen. And also, we will be if you did not take the notes, I know lots of us have been, and we need to have the
anybody who took notes, feel free to comment the timestamps in here. We'll pin your comments of the timestamps to the top. And what we're hoping to do is eventually start cutting these up into like short clips so that you guys can get like a 10-minute here and there chapter of the thing, because there's a lot of stuff that goes in 4 hours. We just covered basically a semester's worth of chemistry. So
referral salts, saltpeters, cream of tartar, plus calcium carbonate. And
and if you guys know Ken Wheeler, you go ahead and you tell him he's invited.
Hypothesis, great individual, and
we'll invite him on. See, we're good.
Exactly. Trying to talk to Uncle Kenny, get Uncle Kenny the tattooed monkey on here, and have a toroid of a time. I emailed him links of the Year of the Coil series, which we shall continue, and get your battery materials ready and your previously made batteries to all of you out there that have already made the Hutchinson crystal batteries ready for the next episode.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you
I'm
next
still kind of sad I never got to find out how to make the alternating current version of the batteries.
Well, it's in my notes, and it was actually mentioned twice in there and covered, so you're just going to have to rewatch the episode and take some more notes, because it's in there.
So
it's pulsing
my internet
frequencies and the geometry of having it in a spherical shape.
Right. And a big part of actually like some of the different tactics you could take to do that, I think were described rather well by Michael Boyd's magnetic gravitron concepts. I think you could imagine that as a tool and he showed some examples of it being used for the Tictoc and the UAP in Catalina. So those are all connected concepts.
Well, I mean, were those in this? I suppose I have had internet problems the entire evening, and it's one of those things of which if that's really in this broadcast,
you can go ahead and like tell us what you felt like was missed. Like afterwards, go back and like make sure that anything that you have questions on, we continue to answer, because I think the questions, and I'll admit like there are circumstances where the answer was love or something, and so that makes it more difficult when you're trying to ask about alternating current, but there really are the correct answers. It sounds kind of la-di-da.
That is true Bible code and like the Talmud and all of that. Like the more you go into the ancient writings,
we need to probably talk to Ben Stewart about kymatica and some of the ideas of kymatics, because that does relate to the idea of alternating. How you alternate a current is the other thing. We showed some pictures. Michael showed the polarization of
how much chocolate have you ever had in life? Like I remember getting a hold of a guy that he knew chocolate, and I remember telling this guy, I'm like, have you ever like read the ingredients list on the chocolate things? And he said, well, like, no, not a lot of them. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, have you ever really thought about like why chocolate's so tasty? And I described this thing to him of this cupcake manufacturer place that their like ingredient in their whole cupcakes was love. And I told him that like most of the chocolate that shows up to the United States is made from Venezuela.
Wise wisdoms of cupcakes of love.
Right. So when you look at Venezuela, like they have got an enormous amount of hate for the United States. The secret ingredient of why chocolate is so tasty is all of that hate from Venezuela. And this chocolate connoisseur that opened up his own business that made a
So whatever you were saying about chocolate, it didn't seem like it was that important, but all of a sudden they cut you off, and so therefore clearly it must have been hugely
funny part.
But yeah,
okay,
hundreds of thousands of dollars to open a.
Adam, one of these days, you and me will have some cacao. You'll see what's really good about chocolate.
Hate or anything for the end. It's all love. It's all about building your own crystal batteries and getting the materials ready for the next one. And don't you
But yeah,
worry,
Adam, we
there's
need to get
lots
some
of
cacao,
secret sauce.
and we'll
That
make
there's
some.
also private wizard streams with the Hutchinsons for the actual wizards and the hobbits that want to put in the work to get in there. And those are recorded. Certain parts will eventually be, for the sake of free science and development, will be edited and publicized, but will take time. And it's a sharing, a mixture of the secret sauces of the different missing parts all coming together. So,
But yeah, Adam, after this, Adam, when we're done, I'll send you a couple links or some things I think you'd like to see, especially Ben Stewart's Chromatica, which will help understand, an idea on alternating current and how you can use crystal lattices to control a current, or the currency as they referred to it earlier. But yeah, it was a great conversation. It's late for me. I gotta go to bed. Bernie, I love you.
Good night.
Love you all, brothers and sisters, and everybody that has been a part of this nearly 4-hour journey. Andreas, Adam, everyone, John, Nancy, Jeremy, Jeremiah, you weren't even here, Charlie, Mike, Michael, and anybody I might have missed. I love you all. We love you all. We'll catch you on the next one.
We're gonna do it again soon.
Ta-ta.